Greetings, weary traveler, come, warm yourself by the fire, and let us regale you with mighty tales, tales of adventure, tales of heroism, and of course, tales of Tamriel. I'm your host Arkhaniir, and we have a super exciting episode. First, joining us, as usual, Pixie and Lotus, but we have a fantastic, super guest joining us, our beloved community manager, the scribe of the Natchpots, Gina Bruno herself. How are you doing, Gina?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you so much for making the time and being here.
Oh,
honestly,
yeah.
This is. We've been so excited about this.
I've got lots of time right now.
Yeah. I mean, one of the very few good things about the strange happenings around the world right now, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know how this episode is gonna go because half of my body is numb due to excitement.
Excitement levels on high.
Not normal.
Well, yeah.
You're having a heart attack. We should probably call it ambulance.
Yep.
Deep breath.
Yeah, I think I'm used to this level of caffeine and this level of sleep deprivation, so I think I'll be fine. Everything is gonna go perfectly.
Exactly.
What could possibly go wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
You've only fallen asleep during about 3 episodes that I've noticed.
True.
So.
True.
Exactly. And this time you won't be able to sleep for days. So
You better not fall asleep during this one. Just saying.
I hope not. Although
Just
that
make loud
does
noises.
lead to some fun discussions that you could get into
Yes.
as well, like raising drones over Cyrodiil once.
yeah. We carried on a conversation without you as you sat upright and still kind of dozed off. But that was also, to be fair, like 1 a.m. our time.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's really late where you are, so you have a little bit of a pass,
Yeah.
but only a little one.
So we are gonna go with the usual show structure, with the exception of we have some questions for Gina, obviously, now that we have her
ready.
here. But first, a little behind the scenes update and to get into the show, because this is exactly how we derail, Gina. We start talking about random stuff and then the show never starts.
We've only been live for like a minute, and you're already derailing.
Yep. You'll be amazed how fast we can get off track. The talent,
Right on.
really.
Hey, you're in good company.
So we are working on a new logo for Tales of Tamriel, but neither of us really have any idea about artistic stuff. I can only draw stickman figures, and Lotus and Pixie as well, they are not really, we are not art people. So if you have any ideas or sketches that you might want to bring up to us, we would welcome them. In the meantime, we are going to try to come up with something ourselves, but just wanted to mention that and use the collective hive mind of our community to perhaps come up with something nice. So that's it. That's the behind the scenes part. We do have a very quick to mention news. Elder Scrolls Online's 6th New Life Festival is coming up, starting April 2nd and running until April 14th. This is the 6th year anniversary.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
6 years.
I
go
assume
ahead,
we get
Lucas.
another Jubilee cake, which it's starting to get hard. It was one thing when it was just a dungeon team and we could line up the 4 of them. It's starting to get problematic to get a group big enough to have somebody with all of the Jubilee cakes because we always stack them.
Have you guys
And
seen
we-
the cake this year? What it looks like?
I need
No.
it
I
in real
don't-
life.
It looks
I
like
think-
it's Daedric.
That article went out, right? Oh yeah, the
Yeah,
red
it is.
one. Yeah,
Yes.
well, it's like
Oh, yes,
red
yes,
velvet
yes.
or something. I don't know.
That makes more sense than Daedric.
I mean, hey, either way, the blood of your enemies, maybe.
I see.
Actually,
Delicious.
this is blood for the pact cake, and I'm gonna be
Yep.
using this throughout the entire year until the next Jubilee cake, now that I notice it. So I'm happy about this.
Says
And
the man
already-
in the Somerset shirt.
That's what he is wearing it.
Yes, true. I
Busted.
actually got a lot of...
Busted.
Yeah, a lot of trouble for the wearing the Somerset shirt. Memes were made, but it is what it is. I had to rock the swag, and it happened to be the Somerset one.
I didn't realize we had another Eldmeri trader in our show. That's good to
I'm the
note.
only one here, other than apparently Ark now, who likes the Dominion.
Apparently now I'm the
both-
minority pact player.
I was gonna say, you're wearing the Nord sweatshirt, aren't you?
Wow, good catch. Yes, I am.
I see it. I see you.
Yep, this is from man, when did you guys even make these? This was 4 years ago.
Years ago. It was years ago. That's the one with the fuzzy hood, right?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
I've got
I
all my
remember
nice
that one.
fuzz in the hood.
Nice.
Wow.
Fuzz in the
all
hood.
right,
That
good
sounds
catch.
like a. Yeah.
Nobody ever
album
understands what this is, so it's always like, oh, that's an interesting pattern. I was like, it's very, very
It's a
meaningful
Nord,
to me.
okay?
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Is it a random question? Is it getting difficult to come up with cake designs at this point? Because
So, I was a little disappointed that we didn't do 6 tiers this year, or 5 tiers, or whatever it's supposed to be. I guess
Yep.
it would be
It'd be 5, right? Because you don't have one for the first
for
technical.
the right. That's right. So
Right.
it would have been 5 tiers for the 6th anniversary.
I mean, last year's was pretty ridiculous with the amount of tiers, because I know we did
Yeah.
the picture where we had them all stacked next to each other, but it's it's just smaller cakes on top of bigger cakes each year.
We had a real one that they made just for the office to celebrate last
Oh.
year, and it was really tall and really
That's
good.
amazing.
And this year I'm kind of secretly hoping for a nice
Another giant cake.
red velvet giant cake.
There's berries on it and everything. It looks so good. I need it.
Yeah, it's a good one this year.
I would be happy with a massive in-game cake though, because I really enjoy dropping this when someone in the party is trying to get a chest or something like that. Just drop the cake instead.
Are you the guy that cakes the door so nobody can get through?
Cakes the door.
See, I never
and while
thought about
everybody...
that. Now I will be
really?
that guy. Yeah.
Oh no!
Again, I always question if I should say these things on air for fear that they will get picked up by people and corrected, because then I can't grief people. And it's going to be even harder to get away with this time because you're here. But everybody doesn't like having all the pets by the crafting stations. But man, you put a Jubilee cake there, and then everybody just has a snack instead of making their rinse.
Turns into cake chaos.
But how can you really be mad whenever you're eating cake? So
Exactly.
True.
And you need
Yeah,
to
it's
be in the same
everyone
group.
kind of enjoys their time, and then they're like, "All right, get your cake out of here. We're done."
Exactly. Put it over here.
I mean, I do on occasion drive our dungeon team with Ophelia Noir crazy by starting to eat a cake in the middle of a boss fight instead of tanking. So, don't judge. It's a cake.
I mean, I'll do that too if I see a chest and everyone's fighting. I'm like, "Oh, let me just go over here and unlock this chest real quick." Don't mind me.
See, now I can use this as well whenever someone gets angry at me in our dungeon group. We're like, yeah, Gina does it.
It's officially confirmed.
Yeah, it's the official way of doing a dungeon. But yeah, so get ready for New Life Shenanigans starting April the 2nd, and for the 12 days thereafter. It'll be another blast, and the details of it you can find on the forums. We are not going to go into them too much, but there's of course a new Indrik, double rewards, things like that. I'm actually not sure about double rewards. I always do these news without fully reading the article, and then someone has to correct me.
That
I knew I
hurts.
should have read those first.
Yeah.
That hurts.
there is a new outfit style that's absolutely gorgeous, and I have to have it.
Oh, see?
It's golden
I
and
should-
pretty.
Priorities.
Golden and pretty.
Fashion Scrolls
Okay.
Online.
That's golden and pretty doesn't mean nice because it represents Aldmere Dominion.
Well, we
It didn't
recently
have,
learned
an
that you've
all-married
joined them.
So
I forget
yeah.
what it was called, but the name did not scream elf to me. So you should probably be okay to like it. And Greymoor is coming up, so elf is that was a couple years ago. So you should be good.
Yes. We are gonna be talking about Greymoor stuff later, so I'm not gonna start Jumping into it right away. We do have actually an interesting discussion topic. And this is from PTS. And it's about some changes to the light and heavy attack in combat. Now, before we get into
Potential changes.
That is true. Potential changes.
Yes.
I'm actually going to ask you if you can elaborate on what is the special off cycle period of this testing and what this test is about, really.
Yeah, so this is the first time we've really used PTS sort of in a different way. And I mean, PTS stands for test server. Mm-hmm. And previously, the only times we've ever used it was right before a DLC or a chapter is about to be released. And that's kind of how people have come to expect, like, oh, we're on PTS. That means we're a few weeks away from launching the thing. And this is the first time that we've used it. We keep calling it an off-cycle test because it's not tied to a specific DLC or a specific chapter. It's just some ideas that we had that we wanted to try, and we figure, well, F it. Let's put it on PTS and have other people try it and see and kind of get their feedback that way. So it's the current live game with these changes in, and that's it. Like, no new stuff, no bug fixes, none of it. It's just these light and heavy attack changes. And we've been saying on the forums to submit your feedback in game, so that way we know at least that you've downloaded and updated PTS, yeah. You've made the effort to log in, hopefully try it out and give feedback that way. And we've been combing through pages and pages of feedback of people that have gone in and tried it out, some positive, some negative, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the whole point, is seeing how people with different play styles are taking these changes and what they think about them. So all week, I know the team has been reading through all of the in-game feedback. They've been reading feedback on the forums. They've been floating around Discords, just taking it all in and seeing what players think of this idea that they had. And that's all it is right now. Like, we haven't committed to putting it in any particular update yet. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think as far as running a test on PTS that isn't tied to a DLC or a chapter, it's been pretty successful in that sense, which is exciting. So maybe we can do more of this, Okay,
that's actually good to hear, because I mean, that's something I think about. Like, are there actually enough people in PTS testing the stuff? So it's actually good to hear, at least for me, that probably not as much for everyone reading through all those comments, but that there is enough people testing it out that you actually are having to go through a lot of feedback. I'm gonna download it as well. I haven't been able to do much of ESO because, strangely, I thought I would have more time working from home to play games, but that proved to be wrong.
It's really hard to kind of end your day when you're already home,
Exactly.
I've been running into the same thing.
It used to be like, okay, I'm home, leave my laptop at work and come home, and, well, since I don't have my laptop, I can't work anymore. But now it's like, I just figured this out, so maybe I should do it.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, just it's something I kind of noticed. With the off-cycle style of the PTS testing, it almost makes me curious. Just because I know, when we talk to Jibs and Cash from Lore Seekers or something like that, they're of a very similar mindset where I don't like the idea of doing storyline stuff, on a test server. Not that I can, anyways. I'm on PS4, so I don't test. I just wait for you guys to tell me all the interesting bits. But the thing is, if people are on testing this, they're not getting a story expansion. They're there, they're testing the thing that's available because it's not tethered to something else. It's not an excitement to see the new dungeons and you're ignoring the changes type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if maybe hopefully it'll be a little more beneficial feedback-wise instead of people getting distracted by other things, because there's less things to pull people's attention to other than literally just what you're giving them to test.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because before we get on, I guess, a more traditional PTS cycle, when we're about to, do a dungeon pack or whatever it is, we all get into a room. All of the, we call them product owners, so people who are kind of owning each individual feature, whether it's a new thing or a system or the item sets or whatever it is. We all get in a room together and we talk about, okay, what are all of the things going into this PTS that we want feedback on? And that's those threads that you see on the forums, like, oh, here's, the thread for this and the thread for this, and all the questions that the devs want answered. That's where all that comes from, is this meeting. And anytime it's a dungeon pack, Mike Finnegan, who's our dungeon lead, is always like, well, can you guys not put any of the events or any of that stuff in the first week? Because I need people going in and testing these dungeons first, and that's kind of the new hotness, and that's where people will go. And then the following week, maybe we can turn on, this event that people will kind of go into, or if you want to turn on this prologue quest or whatever it is, and everyone's kind of just biting at what happens the first week, because that's when we kind of get the most people in checking out all the new stuff. So
right.
So the decision comes based on who convinces everybody, or do you have a system to decide which feature actually gets in at the first week?
There's some priorities. Like the dungeons are probably one of the higher priorities, being that the DLC is kind of revolving around that dungeon pack. Sometimes when we have events on PTS, it'll depend on if it's a new event or not, or if it's a repeat from a previous year, because we know, if not a lot has changed, a lot of people probably aren't going to test it right now, or if it's really complicated, let's be honest with ourselves, how many people are actually going to go through and do all these steps and whatever. So we get less traffic as the PTS cycle goes on, just because, it's not new anymore and people have already tried out the things or tested or given their feedback on whatever. So it's sort of prioritizing, what are some of the more important things going into this update that we want people testing, and spacing it out. And also kind of tying to the character copies that we do. We'll get another spike when we do another character copy and swap that around. Now, I know the character copy thing is kind of contentious, and people are like, why do you even have to do it? Because then it wipes my progress, and, the templates are fine, just let us use that. But when we do those character copies, here I am. Now I'm the one derailing.
No, this is perfect.
Yeah.
This is the type of inside baseball I was hoping you'd give us.
Yeah. Oh, we'll be here for hours then. So when we do these character copies, it's tied to a lot of database changes, and we need to make sure that, once we swap over to this European database or whichever one that we're doing, does everything work? Is there any oddities that only show up for, NA but not EU? And it's all in the name of testing and making sure that things work, because they are two separate databases. So I know every time I ask the live team, do we really have to do a copy right now? And they're like, yes, we do. So it's all testing stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of behind the scenes testing that happens.
I bet.
I understand that, especially the server stuff is, I don't know if it's the same in ZAS as well, but it's been a nightmare for us. So I work at a mobile game company, so it's not as complex as an MMORPG, obviously, but most of the problems we had, especially when we did a global relaunch and had a massive influx of players, servers were disastrous, and carrying a server or data from one server to another server, everything went so wrong that at that point I was like, okay, now I understand why we don't have cross-platform play, now why we don't have character. I understood everything in
tough.
That week at work. It was our backend team was working day and night. They had shifts. There was someone at the office all the time. It was crazy. And since then, I'm if there's something wrong with the servers, I'm it happens. It just happens. You can't fight it.
Yeah, it's a beast running a game this size, and especially with all the different servers. Even internally, we have a bunch of different servers, and then externally, we have, all the PC ones, Xbox, PS4, PTS. It's madness. So, things do happen.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for a little bug to just kind of happen and be really hard to track down. So everybody goes straight to running on your mount, which is hilarious and should just always be there. But so I work as a front-end dev for a web development company, and just the amount of silly bugs that I've found that take me hours to track down that you would think would be really simple, but it's this huge chain of things that led to this little bug. So I cut devs a lot of slack whenever I find things like that.
Yeah, and like, not making excuses, but like, when you look at the size of our game, even just the number of abilities alone, and the number of classes, and the number of zones, and the number of monsters, and you think of... Am I still on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I heard my headphones beep, and I'm like, oh god, they just died. But yeah, thinking about, like, just the combination of all these different things, and like, okay, you touch this thing over here, and maybe that affects this thing way over here, and it's impossible to test all those different scenarios for every single thing. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do it. So, we certainly do the best we can. And I saw, somebody in chat asking about, like, what's going on with the ability desyncs. Like, it's that type of thing where we're trying to figure out what was the thing that caused this, and kind of going through all that code and seeing, because there are a lot of things that changed in this update. It wasn't just the block changes or whatever. Like, there were a lot of different things that went in. So, it's still a priority, and it's still being worked on. I didn't say the name of the person who mentioned it, but it's definitely something that we're still working towards.
Yeah,
it's complicated though. It's a big game.
So I understand that if you didn't have any experience with like coding or development or things like that, people don't really realize how complex and, to be honest, stupid it can get about bugs. We once had the game crash on live completely. It was just crashing for all the users. And it took us hours to figure out, for some reason, one string from the server was coming, instead of an I, it was coming as the Arabic I, which looks exactly the same, but when you try to read it, it's not I. So it was crashing, and I was like, what is going on? Why is this not working?
Yeah, God, how do you even begin to find something like that?
Somehow our lead developer, after hours of looking at like the data and stuff, he was like, wait a second, that I looks not right.
Yeah.
And that's basically like, because I can see, I barely see some of the effects in the game when I'm playing, especially there's a lot of going on in the game. I will never see something that small a detail unless I'm maybe 1 inch from the screen. So if that was up to me, I would have never figured what was wrong. I think weird things can happen. Like you add one line of code somewhere and suddenly your player is upside down for whatever reason. It happens.
Suddenly you're running on top of your mount.
Yeah,
exactly.
That is a feature.
There is one bug that I wish were never fixed. It was the PTS of elsewhere.
I was going to say, don't say it out loud, because now we're going to fix it.
No, it's already fixed, unfortunately. So if you died just as you were transitioning to that Bone Colossus Ultimate of the Necromancer, your character would stuck in that massive size.
I remember that one. Yep.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. It was my dream.
My God.
Running around as the biggest character in the game.
I remember getting screenshots from people about that one, and they were like, "This is awesome!" And I'm like, "Oh God!" I'm like, they're gonna fix this so fast.
I was running around as that with the Nordic bath towel, and it was the most beautiful thing in Elder Scrolls Online for me.
Wow.
It didn't last long, but it was.
That's special.
It was perfect. It was probably horrifying for everybody else, but it is what it is. So about the actual changes that are being tested, jumping back on topic.
I was going to say, where did this line of questioning come from?
It just went. There it goes.
Yeah, this is perfect. This is us. I'm enjoying
Yeah,
this.
you fit right into the dynamic here. I appreciate it.
So basically what's going to happen in summary is, or rather what is being tested in summary is, instead of heavy attacks restoring resources, I'm actually going to read the bullet points just to convey the right information.
They're
Light
really
attack-
good words.
Yeah.
Whoever
Written
wrote
by
them.
someone amazing. That
Go ahead, read, please.
light attacks now restore resources, and resource restore is removed from heavy attacks. So they are switching light attack and heavy attack. They are switching the roles. Successive light attacks grant a stacking resource buff up to 3 consecutive attacks, maxing out the benefit without weaving abilities. Light attack damage is reduced and heavy attack damage is increased. Non-fully charged heavy attacks, also known as medium attacks, now have a scaling amount of damage based on how long you hold the attack, up to the full heavy attack damage thing.
Nailed
All
it.
types of attacks now interact with off-balance. Light attacking on off-balance targets results in even more resource return. Medium attacking on off-balance targets results in more damage. Heavy attacking, so that's a fully charged heavy attack on off-balance targets, result in more damage and stun that we are used to. So basically it's sort of changing what is used for DPS and what is used for resource management for, you know, light attack and heavy attack. And it is, I guess, for certain playstyles, a big change. Now, I've never played a DPS character, so I actually don't know how light attack weaving works to begin with, to comment on that. But my main problem as a tank is my resource management. So doing heavy attacks to get my resource back every now and then, because sometimes I just don't have the time to do the heavy attack. So I'm quite happy that I can instead get... Ooh, hello, kitty. Say hello. Say hello to everyone.
Aww.
No, you're not gonna?
He's so
Okay.
cute.
And he's jumping off. No?
He's like, just pet me for a second, please.
Yeah, just real
Stop
quick.
touching me now.
And he jumped off. Yeah, this is his thing. He comes and goes, like, he doesn't want pets. Instead, he just wants a few
Just
seconds
quick
of attention.
Yeah.
He just wants you to know who's in charge, yeah.
Yeah. What was I saying? Right, so using light attacks to restore resources is much better for me as a tank, at least for my playstyle, because that means I'll spend less time trying to get resources back. I'll be getting resources back at the same time I'm applying the heroism bonus for my ultimate regain. And since as a tank I don't do damage either way, like either with light attack or heavy attack, I don't really have a use for heavy attack other than getting resources back. So in terms of my tanking style and my problem of resource management, I think this will be better for me. So I'm in favor of this at the moment. I haven't tried it on PTS as I mentioned, but it feels like it'll be beneficial and solve my resource management issues. And Lotus, you're a
Yeah.
tank as well. What do you think?
Kind of in a similar vein, and it was actually mentioned in chat as well from Greymoor, as I know he is a main tank as well. One of the things that can be kind of tricky, especially if you're getting used to tanking, is some of the more aggressive encounters, Black Rose or Depths of Malatar, Frostbolt, stuff like that, where you have to be holding your block to defend against stuff. Moonhunter Keep's another one where stuff hits very, very hard. So if you drop your block, it's going to crush you. So you need to keep your block up, which can kind of get draining if you're getting plinked a lot of like small attacks. Black Rose is pretty much the bane of my existence for that reason, where I'm getting pelted by so many things all the time. So my resources are constantly drained, but I can't actually drop my block long enough to really do anything, because then I'm going to get smoked. And once you get the hang of it, you kind of need to weave these heavy attacks in between you casting any buffs, casting any shields, and also keeping your block up. If I can do it with a light attack, or in the windows where I would previously hit a heavy attack to get my resources back, and I could string together a couple quick light attacks, this seems like nothing but benefit and making my life less awful as a tank, at least on principle alone, which to me, I don't see why I wouldn't like that, because like you said, sometimes timing a heavy attack in between, like, okay, I just soaked that huge one shot and now I need to get my stamina back, but if you mistime it and you can't get your block up in time, you get smoked on the follow-up. Weaving in one or two, or I mean, you can basically almost probably weave in about 3 light attacks if you do it right in the time of that. It's like you might be able to get that extra buff from stringing a couple together. So I don't know. At least in theory, I like the way it sounds for tanking, to be sure.
And I can kind of echo that sentiment too, because I also play a support class. I main a healer, and for me, this actually makes me want to go back to my Templar a bit more, because my Templar is a high elf, and I noticed that with the racial changes a couple of patches ago, Bretons do much better on the regen front. Now it's like, well, wow, I can actually go back to my high elf, and as long as I just weave in light attacks occasionally, I don't have to worry about sitting there heavy attacking for so long. So then that build's going to feel more like it used to me, and that's really exciting for me in case I want to mix it up and Templar heal for a bit. And then on top of that, on the DPS side of things, I have recently been leveling a DPS, even though it's not my usual thing. And the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around right now is this light attack weaving, where my whole approach to it, and I know it's probably wrong, but I spastically click skill buttons followed by spastic clicking until I see a light attack launch, and then I spastically click the next skill button, and that's how I do my rotation. So I just repeatedly do that until something dies, and I feel like mixing this up with heavy attacks instead would be a better way for me to not do it the wrong way, because I'll have to actually take the time to complete a heavy attack instead of click, 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 and then button ridiculously quickly until something happens. And then so I can remember back from being a brand new player whenever I first started, when ESO came out, I was super confused because in Skyrim, if you're playing with a sword or something and you do a heavy attack, your stamina goes down. But if you do a heavy attack in ESO, your stamina goes up. And so I, for a while there, until somebody told me I was doing it wrong, was not heavy attacking because I was having resource regeneration issues. They're like, no, you must heavy attack. That's what you need to be doing, because apparently I didn't read tooltips. And that was my own fault.
It doesn't really make sense, too, if you think about it. Like, the more energy you use to do this heavy attack... Wait,
yes.
What? Like, yeah,
it's kind of counterintuitive.
A little bit.
Actually, funny enough you say that. If you want to, like, draw in from, like, any of the other games, like, you can light attack as much as you want in games like Skyrim or Oblivion, and it doesn't matter. And when you do a heavy attack, that's what drains your stamina. So, like, it'll even just seem more intuitive for people coming from any of the other games, specifically since we're going back to Skyrim, and I assume you're going to see an influx of people like, hey, I wanted to play Skyrim with friends. Oh, look, it's now Skyrim with friends. It'll immediately, like, if you end up going forward with it, of course. If it doesn't test well, it's, who knows. But it's one of those things. It seems, at least in theory, that would kind of just click better now that you say it. I mean, it never seemed weird to me until I thought about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that is kind of backwards, isn't it? Like, fair enough.
And another thing is, so this is kind of on me for playing only a tank for 6 years, but I've been playing only a tank for 6 years. So whenever I see a potential drastic change in combat, I'm like, nice. It'll change the way I play, maybe. I probably should play other roles as well, but it's just, once a tank, always a tank is what I say. In addition to that, I really like the idea that anything that might or will change how the game plays, because as we just said, it'll be the 6th year anniversary, and some change, I believe, regardless of however drastic or what it changes, is good. Because I expect to play ESO for a lot more years, and I'll be probably playing as a tank for all those years as well. So whatever
Thank you.
that is strangely changed, I'll be happy. But yeah. Now, I would love to comment on the DPS side of things, but I don't think any of us here play DPS.
Look, all right.
We are a very diverse group that can comment on this.
Yeah, tank, healer. But look, Arkhaniir is coming along nicely. Maybe with these changes, I can push 30, 40k DPS, and I can do vet trials instead of just normal trials with him.
One day, I probably shouldn't say this live with Gina on, but I'll get into your account and delete that character.
I don't know why you dislike him so much. He is a tribute to you.
Well,
Arkhaniir.
Yes. So, way back, just for any backstory,
Tell me.
Yeah, Ark is not a fan of Guars. So one of the first
What
things
is it
I
about
did...
the Guar that you don't like? Is it
Oh
here we
God!
go.
Don't get
the
started
little
on that.
arms or?
no, not just the little arms. See, I know for a fact that Guars are the most evil beings on Tamriel, secretly plotting the destruction of all Nirn, even worse than Daedra. They are tricking yeah.
I felt that way about koalas for a long time, so I can understand where you're coming from. I can.
So they are tricking everyone into thinking they are cute creatures, whereas in fact they are probably a lab experiment gone wrong abominations by a mad scientist trying to fuse together harpies, crocodiles, chickens, snakes, maybe a T-Rex in there, even though they don't even exist in Tamriel, which further proves that they are evil. So it's not that I'm not a fan of the Guar. I'm just trying to warn everybody about the upcoming.
Sound terrified of them, if anything.
I'm just trying to warn everyone about the dangers that the Guar will bring. But people don't believe me for the moment. But eventually, I hope everybody will see the true danger.
And as a tribute to me joining the show 2 years ago, I made a replica of Arkhaniir in-game and named him Arkhaniir, who I have now managed to get through several trials, and he rides around on a Guar, and I think it's just his real ego coming out in character form, and he just hasn't accepted it yet. That's all.
I'm going to ask our support team to change all of his mounts to Guar.
Oh,
Please.
wow.
And I love it.
I'm actually at
Permanent
the
Guar
moment.
mount.
I'm actually at the moment running, using a Guar mount and a Guar pet because it was one of our extra life pledges.
Yes.
And see, I love Skyrim as the region and as culture and lore. But the reason I am most excited about Greymoor chapter release is that I promised everyone that I would use a Guar until Greymoor releases. So I'm eagerly waiting for Greymoor so I can get rid of the Guar.
So you can just stop the madness.
Yeah.
Now, if you can get your support team to change one of his tunes to a high elf, then he would just love you guys forever.
Make it so.
Wow. This was a mistake.
It's like, you're never invited back again.
On the
There's been a
contrary,
disconnect.
My cat chewed the cables. Yeah. But I'm just trying to warn you guys, but no, it is what it is.
My big thing, I the exact opposite issue you have. You're terrified of guars. I just think whenever I'm in game, I want to strike fear into the hearts of my enemies, and I feel like guars are just a little bit derpy T-Rex. So I prefer the Kagudi. If I'm going to go with a bipedal mount, I'm going to go with the Kagudi, because the guars are just... like, I mean, they kick their little feet when they're sleeping, and I'm not really scared of you whenever I
You just want to, like, pat them on the head and tell them they've been a really good boy today.
Exactly. I want to ride in on a giant cat or a giant wolf or a actual T-Rex looking thing with big horns instead of the derpy one that's kind of adorable but also not scary.
Hey, you just called them kind of adorable. Your previous statement was that they are weird.
Yeah, they are. But they also
they
kick their feet when they're sleeping.
They converted you too. This is why they are dangerous. Their magic is too strong.
The sleep animation was it convinced me they're cute. Now, I don't use them as mounts because, again, they're not fearsome. That's not what I'm going for. I'm a necromancer. Why do I want to ride around on a derpy T-Rex? I want to ride around on a wolf with tattered armor pieces, not... or the Death Hound mount that's coming out with the digital collector's edition.
So, yeah, I urge anyone who's curious or would love to give feedback about these changes to download PTS and log in and test it for yourself, see how it is, and, give your feedback. Because that's how we are gonna know whether if this is a good change or not. Well, whether not we, but ZeniMax team will know. And then we'll know based on that decision.
Yeah, we'll know by proxy.
Yeah. So that kind of concludes that part. Which, as a next thing, Gina, if you are ready, we would love to start our questions.
I would love to talk about myself, so I'm ready.
So we prepared some questions for Gina. Some job-related, some in-game related. It starts with, what is your official position and title at ZeniMax Online Studios for anyone by any chance doesn't know you somehow?
So I am one of the community managers. I am only on ESO at ZeniMax Online. We have a whole bunch of community managers across Bethesda that focus on different titles and different companies. So we have CMs that work with Bethesda and they focus more on the other Elder Scrolls games, 76. We have folks over focusing on the Arcane titles, machine games, all of those. I am strictly at ZOS for ESO. And then even within ZOS, we have Jess, who is also community manager. We have Sarah, who does social media. Dom does all of our articles. So we do have a little team. We all kind of focus on different things, but I can talk about all my things in a little bit.
The legendary
or now
team.
The legendary team.
So the next question would be, what does your day-to-day tasks involve as a community manager?
So I will say that with a live game like ESO, there's kind of no typical day. It's always kind of a surprise. I always have I use the little sticky notes through Windows to kind of keep track of these are the things I want to do. And I'm lucky if I get through one, maybe two things in a day. I have this long list of things and I'm all right, let me kind of prioritize and hit the things that, have a deadline that I need to do. But something always comes up. And it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes somebody just wants to come by and chat about this thing that's going into a future update and how that's going to impact this, or how do we message this, or oops, the server's down, now we have to message this. So it's a little worse than oops, the server's down. But generally, I could talk a little bit about the things that I guess I own in a sense, and the things that I typically do. So I would say at any one time, I am working on some set of patch notes for something. So whether it's for PC, if it's an incremental or if it's an update. One of the console patch notes, we have Xbox and PS4, which are largely the same, but sometimes there's fixes that go into one and not the other. Usually it's like a crash fix or something, or a UI related thing. PTS, of course, that's sort of my busiest time, is when we're on a PTS cycle, because it's constant iterations and they come in really fast, and they're long. There's a lot of fixes that go into them. So that's sort of my high stress period, is when we're on a PTS cycle. It's funny, like the way it works internally is the build usually locks by Wednesday. And it's like all the fixes you're getting in for the next week, you have to get it in before Wednesday. And then Thursday is when people start sending me the fixes, and I have to finish it all by Friday because we still have to get it translated. I send it off to Rich every weekend. Poor Rich has to read my patch notes and make sure that everything looks good if he has any feedback. And then I prep them Sunday nights, and it's just like this constant cycle of
oh my god,
fixes going out. So it's a process. I remember somebody asking me one time, like, do you seriously put together this many pages in just a day? And I'm like, yep. And they're like, well, can't you do it sooner? And it's like, no. It's just kind of how it is.
Wow.
But I've kind of gotten into a cycle in the dev team too, has really gotten into a cadence of, here are the things we send, here's the format that we like it in, and it's just constantly cranking out. So it feels overwhelming, I think, to a new person looking in, like, my God, you're doing all of this, but it all makes sense to me. And so that's just one of the things. So patch notes obviously is a big one. Program management is another thing that's a little bit more behind the scenes. So I manage the stream team and also the class reps. And a lot of that is, I don't want to say they're on autopilot, but they're doing a lot of the work. And all I'm doing is kind of supporting them with the things that they need. So the streamers, they'll do a lot of charity things that I try and support, whether it's through, notifying Sarah, hey, can you put out something on social for this? Activating Twitch drops if we have to. Making sure that they have giveaway codes and things that they need to kind of help support and grow their channels. For the class reps, it's a lot of just sort of liaison work, so going back and forth between them and devs. And we have dedicated Discord channels for each one of these where it's easy for them to coordinate with us, and the reps in particular talk a lot with the combat team daily, and I'm just kind of there just sort of watching, and if they need anything, or if somebody's not answering, or there's this urgent bug that they just noticed or whatever, like I'm just kind of there being their point person. What else? Live streaming stuff. I always try and schedule out our live streams and figure out who we want on, what are the types of things we're going to be talking about. Should we do anything in game? Should we just kind of interview somebody? Should we do a preview of some new stuff? Just kind of working with all the different teams and figuring out what an interesting live stream might be for ESO lives. It's funny, like, since we've kind of moved to working remotely for the immediate future, I was kind of asking around to some of the different CMs, like, are you guys still going to be doing live streams, or are we pretty much stopping that? And they're like, no, we're going to try. We're just doing it at home. So right now we're kind of trying to figure out the logistics of, all right, if we do a next ESO live and we're doing it at home and we're all in different places, like, how is that going to work? So that's kind of a mini project right now, trying to figure that out, because none of us have like OBS or anything at our houses, because we do it at the studio. So it's a hurdle. We'll figure it out though. We'll do it.
Yeah, I would imagine it's quite a learning experience to have to shift all of that.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Every day I read through the forums, Reddit, Discords, private messages that come in. We always hear people saying like, oh, you never respond to these threads. Well, we're reading them. Like, we are definitely reading. We just don't always either have a response, or we just don't have time to write something up, whatever the response is, at least something that's satisfying. So sometimes the response is super short, like, yep, thanks for the feedback, sent it along or whatever. So
Right.
with the forum PMs in particular, I'm up in the thousands somewhere and it says they're unread, but I actually get an email notification for every forum PM I get. So I read it as soon as it comes to my inbox. And, if it's something that I need to just forward to somebody, I'll do that and be like, all right, TOS team, please look at this. Or, QA, this bug came in, just please look at this. And it's always just kind of sending things around to all the different teams. My inbox is a mess, by the way. Like, I have so many rules and filters set up in my inbox. Like, I have a laundry list of folders where it's like, if this word is in here, then send it over here. And if, this comes in between this period, send it here. And it's just a big jumble of chaos that makes sense to me. So, but it's literally hundreds of thousands of emails. So,
oh my god,
it's a lot. So what else do I do?
Oh my lord, I'm thinking of like the scale that you're discussing compared to just us, the three of us managing one Twitter account.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was just about to say.
Nope. I was like,
It's
I
pretty
lose track of
crazy.
what we're doing all the time.
It's pretty crazy, and one of the kind of interesting things with community in particular is we coordinate with so many different teams, and I just kind of sometimes feel like my brain just can't handle any more information. Like somebody will say something and it's like, who said that thing last week about the thing? Was it over here on Slack? Was it email? Was it in person? I don't know. My brain's at capacity. But that's another thing that we do is we just don't coordinate with the dev team and literally every team within the dev team. So, we talk to QA very often. I'm constantly in Rich's office asking him things, systems, combat, engineering, art, like we're ingrained everywhere. But then also a lot of the other teams, so marketing, PR, sales, events, like we coordinate with all of them depending on, what thing we're working on, whatever it is. And then we have other just kind of miscellaneous things. So, are we planning a contest? We have to figure out, what the contest rules are, work with legal on that. What are the prizes? What are the things that we want to do? Oh, what should we focus on? What's in this DLC? Should we try and support this? Conventions and live events. Not that we're doing a whole lot of those right now, but normally, under normal circumstances, we would kind of be always thinking about like, all right, are we going to have a live stream presence here? And if so, what is that live stream going to be? Do we have hands-on and what's that going to be? And it's a lot of just coordination. And I would say 50% of my day is just coordinating between different groups of all the things that are kind of happening, whether it's something on live, whether it's something that's coming in the next DLC, whether it's something coming later this year. If it's something next year, like we're working pretty far ahead. So I know somebody got on me one time because I forgot what update number we were on, and it's like, well, I'm thinking like 4 updates from now at any given time. So like it's challenging to keep up, but yeah. I tend to thrive the busier it gets. Like I really like multitasking, and I don't know. It's like the more things that I have, the more focused I become. So
yeah. I mean,
let's just say I'm really focused right now. So
good.
Just at the beginning of the show, Lotus asked like what episode number we are on, and I was like, I don't know. Just leave it blank.
Yep.
Number a lot.
Yeah. No.
I can't even remember the names of my own skills in game, so I'm really impressed.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And I feel bad when, there's a forum thread I'm trying to keep up with and give updates to, and there's so many other things that we do that's sort of behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see. So I'm glad I'm kind of given the opportunity. I know that was a lot of word vomit there of like, I do all these things, but
no, not
it's
at
amazing.
all.
We really do touch a lot of different departments and tasks and things.
I can even vouch for that. Just like when we first started discussing having you join us on the show, you apologized for like, oh, sorry, it took me so long to get back. I'm like, this can't possibly be priority in the grand scheme of things with the amount of, I don't know, keeping the game running for the millions of people trying to currently play it. I'm like, I think it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal.
I feel bad, though, because my job is to make sure that I'm here for you all. Whatever other content creators, streamers, players, like, that's why we're here in community, is to help the community and talk with the community. So when somebody pings me and I don't get back for 2, 3, 4 days, weeks, whatever, it's like, well, I feel bad because essentially that is my job. So yeah, I'm sitting here looking at my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Discord pings that just came in, and it's like, I'll get to you after, I'm sorry.
See, I think that's the thing that would drive me the most crazy about a job like yours. I'm one of those people who just can't have notifications. I
the red number.
Get them. It really bothers me. And whenever you were talking about your email inbox, I just felt my own anxiety just shoot through the roof.
All right, so this is not counting all the folders that I have set up. My inbox alone is, oh wait, that's not it. That's too small of a number. 140.
Or you're just way more efficient.
140,000 just in my inbox, and then I have
right. That's a reasonable
2, 3,
number.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I must have at least 20 subfolders, and then even within those, I have ones that can expand. Should we talk about forum notifications?
How did you ever even find my initial email?
I do a lot of searching, so let me see. So that's loading.
Wow.
I clear out my notifications.
Keep straight.
I don't know. There's some days I get home and I'm just like, I'm done.
I mean, that statement I think was enough to me. It's loading, and
yeah,
it has to load.
What's my password?
My.
I mean, as Lotus said, we are barely managing one Twitter account between the three of us.
It's like 3 of us, and it's like.
All right, so my forum notifications, I clear these out maybe every few months. I'm at 26,000, I think. So.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Yeah, if that doesn't give you a little anxiety, huh?
Oh wow!
And they say between the 3 of us, because I just have this thing against unread counts, I will log on to the Tales Twitter account whenever I need to, and then immediately sign myself out, because just notifications like, oh, no, I just can't do the notifications right now.
Oh, our Twitter account, like, thank God we have Sarah taking care of all of that. Like, I'll glance at our Twitter account sometimes, but she's on there all day, and it's just constant notifications coming in, so... It literally is a full-time job taking care of all of the social channels. I can't do it. So
I mean, I probably alone.
Like when she responds, like on like the actual account to anything, it's like, how do you even read it in a sea of that?
Yeah,
like at all.
Yeah. Oh, it's constantly. Yeah, we use a tool that kind of helps. I guess track everything, and it makes it really easy to respond to certain things and track where you've been. So that makes it, I guess, a little bit easier in that sense. But it's constantly moving, nonstop.
Yeah. Now, I was gonna say, because Twitter's original layout is not good for following thousands of notifications.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, also, I forget the name of the thing we use. I don't know if it's even a public tool, so I don't want to get into it. But it's
something more, business oriented to get it to work.
Yeah.
Magic sauce Twitter.
Yes.
So our Discord, so we are 1 hour into the call, and as per a Tales classic, our Discord call seems to be falling behind. It does this for whatever reason after a while. Now this is not the episode to try this, but it's a Tales episode.
Let's
things go wrong. Yeah. What I'm gonna do is we're gonna leave call and hop back in the hopes that it will reset.
All right.
Okay.
This is
Fingers crossed.
Let's try this.
This will be fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can see you guys.
Did we make it?
I think so.
We made it back.
I think we're all alive.
At least we make it back. I don't know if it made better, but we made it back.
Yeah, well, at least we didn't blue screen anybody's PC this time.
Oh, Ark disappeared. There he is. He's back now.
That might have been me. Sorry. My Discord was like, "Oh, you're in Russia," and I'm like, "No, I'm not." So I clicked US, and then something bad happened. So.
Oh, okay. So
We actually have a story about that. For whatever reason, the Russian server is the one that works best from US to Turkey.
Oh,
We don't know
but
why.
no. Let's try
no,
that.
we're
US
going back
East.
to Russia. Here we go.
No. Okay.
Did I break it?
We're back.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, we went to US.
Should I keep
East,
clicking
that
buttons
was
here?
a
awesome.
little fire.
So
This
if I
is
just
why-
want to start trolling, I just got to change. Like, can I say we're in Brazil?
We probably could, but I don't know what's it gonna do. Never tried it.
It'll be fun.
Well,
If you
there's
wanna
only one way to
experiment.
find out.
Buttons. See, Gina could be on the QA team. She knows which buttons to press, so if she ever wants a career change.
It's all about
Yeah.
finding which button breaks the thing.
I was telling a friend of mine the other day that my boss found a couple bugs of mine because he decided to go through a form exactly backwards. I was like, why would you ever do this? You're going diagonally and just clicking random things, and please don't do this.
Please stop.
Yeah. It's like, well, that's how it was a week after I started working there, so I didn't even think to go backwards through things, and I've learned since then.
And Gina and Lotus collectively gave me a mini heart attack there because last time we tried like dropping the call and joining back in, my entire system decided to crash in the middle of the show. Like I got a blue screen, everything got messed up, which I recovered in the post editing. But so as soon as Lotus said, "At least we didn't get a blue screen," you changed the server, and everything went black, and I was like, "No!"
Oh no.
Oh, it was the
Sorry,
perfect
not sorry.
timing. Yeah, this is... Things have to go wrong on Tales at this point. I started to believe audio is magic, and it's actually not a technical thing. It's not hardware, it's not technology, it's completely made out of sorcery and magicka. I don't know if it's Daedric or Aedric in origin. I assume Shia Gorath, considering how unstable it is. So I stopped trying to understand it. I just try to work around it whenever something goes Shia Gorathy in
Just gotta roll with it.
Yeah. Where were we? Right. This is when I get a blank brain. Lotus, take it.
That's fine. Yeah, I was gonna say,
Talking
that's
about-
fine. I've just been informed that I've apparently played so much Elder Scrolls 1 Arena that I've like devolved into tiny pixels on my webcam, which shouldn't really matter anyways. But everybody's like, you're becoming one with the outdated 96 graphics.
Oh no.
All right, so, okay, here we are. I was like, where is my wiki notes? So next question. Have you played any of the Elder Scrolls games other than ESO? Do you have any previous experience or not so much?
Yeah. So the first test game I remember seeing, not playing, was Morrowind. One of my friends in college played it. And I remember watching over his shoulder. I'm like, that looks really cool. Can't play it right now because trying to focus because, boy, college was difficult. Had a lot of distractions, so I did not need a game like that to distract me further. But then the first one that I actually played was Oblivion. And I remember that came out on Xbox 360, right? Pretty sure it was a 360,
think so.
like,
Yep.
almost launch game.
Yeah,
and
it was supposed to be a launch.
Yeah,
And
it
was
came
launch
out like
window.
maybe yeah. And so this was back before like you could just pre-order on Amazon and it shows up at your doorstep. So I camped out for a 360 at I think Costco. I showed up the day before and there was already a line of people and we all just kind of slept outside and waited and it was fun actually. Like I kind of miss those days of camping out for a system, but I make myself sound old here. But
No,
yeah,
I love those. I
it was-
super miss that as well, actually, that
it
everything's
was
digital.
cold. I remember it came out, it had to have been around like November or something, and everyone was freezing, but we were all excited. And I remember in the morning, like somebody's mom went to McDonald's and bought everybody breakfast and like gave everyone little hash browns and orange juice, and it was really cool just kind of seeing like everybody all excited for this thing. But yeah, I got my system. Oblivion came out, I don't know, it was probably a few weeks after that, and I played that a lot, and that was sort of my first test game. And then Skyrim came out, and I was already working at ZeniMax when that was released. And my now husband, I don't think we were married yet at that point, but yeah, he told me, like, look, I'll do everything around the house for a week or so after this comes out, because he knew how excited I was for this game to come out, so I could just do nothing but play for a week straight. And I think Skyrim was probably my favorite test game. Just, I don't know, like the sheer amount of stuff you could do in that game, and it looked beautiful, and it was super fun, and you just kind of got completely lost in it. I think it's a little, I don't know. I can't say ESO is my favorite, because it's like, well, of course, it's like my baby, but
Yeah.
which child is your favorite here? But yeah, I have very fond memories playing Skyrim. It's funny. I remember in Oblivion, I just thought of this. I was doing a quest, and I remember, like, I had to find some NPC or whatever, and I remember hearing one of them, and I'm like, that's the guy I just talked to, because he had the same voice, and I didn't realize at the time that, like, there were so few, I guess, voice
Yeah, there were, like,
actors,
12
but, like,
actors.
my brain went to, like, this has to be the same guy I just talked to, but he's in disguise, and I have to figure out what's going on. Totally wrong.
That's
totally
awesome.
missed the mark there, but,
Everybody is Wes
yeah,
Johnson.
Yeah, everybody is Wes Johnson, correct?
Yeah, fond memories from all those games for sure. I remember, like, it took me forever to actually beat the main story in any of those games, because you get so sidetracked that it's like, oh, I'm just going to do these 800 other quests first, and you kind of even forget, like, what was the main story? What was I even doing? And it's so easy to just, well, I'm going to go pick flowers over here. So
Oh, the entire world is ending. Great. Let me find some sheep for this farmer.
exactly. I'll be right back. Just stay right there.
Yep.
Stay right there for a few months.
Pick this cabbage,
be back.
exactly.
You know
So-
what? My 360 never red ringed. I still have it, my original one.
All right,
That's
so I was
amazing.
going to ask
Yeah.
you that because
I saw somebody
on
in chat asking, like, if
Yup,
it ever
on
red
the
ringed.
opposite end of the spectrum, I made up for it because I red ringed 13 of them.
What?
So,
What? How? What did you do?
because
to
I'm
that?
bad with technology.
Who did you
Yeah, I don't
piss
know.
off?
Yeah, the Xbox gods. apparently.
Yeah, right?
Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Apparently,
so
he
I would
just
keep.
beats the console with his controller when he loses.
Well,
You know you're
I
just supposed
would-
to turn it on.
Well, yeah, but
That's it.
I get very excited and need to really aggressively turn it on. But yeah, luckily, I mean, the store is no longer a business, so I guess maybe not luckily for them, but luckily for me, they had a very generous return policy, so I would just keep recycling the same one. Shout out to Sam Goody, who doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, I remember that store.
Yep, so...
You know what? I don't
my
think
God.
you went through 13 Xboxes with Red Ring if you recycled them at the same place all the time. I think at some point they should have just started giving you your old one.
That's what they were doing.
Yeah, no, it's just immediately put it on the counter, take out my old one, and hand it back to me. Yep.
They're like, here's this a-hole again. Give him his Xbox back. He keeps trying to get another one. Oh, as a former retail employee, that makes me really sad.
Yeah, I was a manager at the mall. I'm aware of how awful I am to myself. So since you mentioned you obviously have a history with the series prior to, how did you get started in the gaming industry, and was this something you kind of had envisioned for yourself as a career?
I always wanted to work in gaming, but I'm an old fart. So back in my day, when I had to walk 20 miles uphill to my job, community management wasn't something that even really existed yet. So I always kind of had that dream of, wow, I want to work in the gaming industry, but I don't know what I want to do. I just kind of want to work there. So I remember in kind of high school, college time, I was convinced that what I wanted to do was work at Nintendo. So I was like, well, I'm just going to have to move to Seattle and figure it out. So, living in Maryland my whole life, that's a pretty major move, especially, when I was a little bit younger, before I even really had a job. But I was just convinced, like, well, let me just go there. And then, like, I don't know what the plan was in my head. Like, just go to the office and ask for a job. Like, I didn't really have a plan. So at some point while I was in college, I remember I was working at CompUSA, bless their hearts. I worked in merchandising and I was putting games away. And I remember seeing, I forget which game it was. It must have been an older test game, and seeing the Bethesda logo on it. And if anyone lives in Maryland, that Bethesda is a pretty major city here. And I remember seeing the logo thinking, I wonder if that's the Bethesda that, like, is right over there. And sure as shit, like, I went back and looked it up and I'm like, oh my God, like, they're right there. They were literally like a few miles away from where I grew up and lived. So, I drove there like, any crazy gamer would do. And I give them my resume and I'm like, here you go. Hire me. I'd like to work here. Of course, I didn't get hired for anything because that's just not how the world works. But I spent a lot of time just applying for whatever. Like, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I just figured, like, this is my chance. Like, this is a pretty major company, literally in my backyard. Like, I gotta try and work here. And, I played test games and I didn't even realize, like, the game that I was playing, like, it got developed, like, right over there. It was pretty crazy. So yeah, I was the crazy person that just kept on applying over and over and over again and was just hoping for some sort of phone call for them to give me a chance. And eventually they spun up the new studio, which was ZOS. And they gave me a call and they were like, okay, would you like an interview? Because it was for a position. It was for an office manager. And that was something that, I had experience doing. I worked in offices before. In college, I don't know if a lot of other colleges had this. So in our dorms, we had front desks and students would man those desks. And I was the supervisor for one of the desks there. So, I had experience kind of managing that type of environment. So anyway, they gave me a call and they were like, oh, can you come in for an interview? It'll be at our Rockville office, which is where their headquarters was. And I was like, yes. I was so excited. So I got in, finally got an interview. It went really well. I remember Fire came in to interview and he comes in and he's like, hi, I'm Matt Fire. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I was just, oh God, I was so embarrassing. But I ended up not getting the job and they were like, well, we'll keep your application on file, blah, blah, blah. Like everybody kind of hears it and you're like, yeah, whatever. Like anything's going to come out of this. So I ended up accepting another job with the police, which was what I went to school for. And they ended up calling me while I was in orientation for this other job. Like, actually, we are going to, give you an offer for this. And I was like, oh, well, okay, now what do I do? So yeah, I remember talking to my dad about it and I'm like, you know what? Crime is always going to be here, but I think I just kind of need to take this opportunity and I know, isn't that awful? I think I just need to take this job and see where it goes. And I also didn't realize that it was like an hour away from where I was living because they were like, well, it's up in Hunt Valley, which is near Baltimore. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. And boy, that commute was not fun. But when I started there, my boss at the time was like, so what do you want to do here? Because it's like, yeah, you're the office manager right now, but like, what do you actually want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. like, I don't know. I guess I'm going to figure it out because I was there so early that, like, I kind of was able to see the studio come together. I see people in chat talking about I was going to be a cop. Like, yeah, so I got my degree in criminology and criminal justice. I wanted to get into police work specifically. I had a whole plan. So I went to school at University of Maryland, and I grew up in Montgomery County. So I wanted to work with the Montgomery County Police, with a canine unit specifically, because I love dogs. And I remember one of my professors at the time also worked in that same county, and he was like, well, the wait list just to be considered for a canine unit is about 10 years. And I was like, oh. Wow. And before that, you basically just have to do street patrol the whole time. And I'm like, well, okay, that's pretty intense. But, you know, whatever, I'll make it work. And I did a lot of interning at the police department. I was part of a group. It was the police auxiliary on campus. So we were kind of like, people would say it's like Rent-A-Cop. Like, you have, you know, a car and you have a uniform and everything, but you don't have a gun. So, like, you can't arrest people, you can't shoot people, but you have your radio and you have all the stuff. And so that was a really good experience to kind of get a lot of hands-on time with, like, what this might be like. And I loved it until really traumatic things started happening. Like, you start seeing things that you just kind of can't handle. At least I couldn't handle it. And I remember talking to a few police about it. Like, I don't know if I can do this. And yeah, I kind of decided my senior year, like, yeah, this isn't something that I think I can handle in life. So anyway, off on a tangent, just blabbing.
But, tangents are good.
Yeah, I'm good at them.
Tangents are good. So actually, we'll just jump down one question and then go back. So when you did get hired, is ESO the first/only project you've worked on there? At least that you can talk about it? I was going to say, I don't know about future stuff, but just backwards wise, I was going to say.
Yeah, so ESO was my first, I guess, game in the industry. It's been my first and only. So I've been there since the studio launched, essentially. There were only 6 employees when I started.
Wow.
It was Fire and Rich were both there. Rich actually worked on Oblivion. He was at Bethesda, and he kind of just transitioned over to ZOS, so that was a nice, easy transition for him. There was a concept artist, Matt Weathers. We actually started on the same day. Ed was one of the engineers. God, who else? It was a really, really small group.
Way back, as we talked about how old this game is.
And it's funny because our first office was maybe just like a mile or two from where our current office is, and it was just like this little like strip mall office. We were right above a dentist's office, so like we would all go to the same dentist. We'd be like, hey, on my lunch break, like, I'll be right back, I'm just going to the dentist, and you literally walk downstairs. But yeah, it was just this teeny tiny little office, and as they started hiring more people, we started running out of room, and it became very apparent pretty quickly, like, well, this isn't going to last very long. It got to a point where we would have to walk to the Starbucks across the street just to use the bathroom, because, like, the bathroom there just couldn't hold as many people as we were having. But yeah, we eventually transitioned to a larger office that we're in now, and started just on one section of one floor, and then we expanded to the entire floor, and, you know, eventually we expanded to multiple floors, and now we're expanding throughout the building, and, like, it's just crazy to go from, like, literally single digits to hundreds of people. Like, it's been a really wild ride. And to see, like, all the departments just kind of slowly come together. Like, when I started, it was literally just the core that you need to kind of start creating a game. So, like, somebody for the servers, one of the engineers, programmer, arts, like, very simple. And then seeing it grow out to, like, oh, now a design team is being formed. Oh, now a QA team is being formed. And, like, just seeing all the pieces come together. And that's when I started to figure out, like, all right, what is it that I want to do here once you kind of start seeing all the pieces coming together? And around that time is when I really started looking into community management and what community managers do. And I remember talking with Matt Grandstaff at Bethesda. He had come to our office one time, and I was really picking his brain about what he did down at Bethesda. And granted, it was for a single player game, but a lot of the tasks and the duties were similar. And then I remember when our then community director got hired, who is now our live director. I told him, hey, I think I really want to do this. Like, I have no experience in community management, but I've been at the studio for a while. Like, people can vouch for me, and this is what I want to do. And here's the reasons why I want to do it. And he gave me the chance to prove myself, and here I am. So I've been in community at Sauce since it was before launch, a little bit before beta. So 7 years in community, something like that. And going on 13 years at the studio. So it's been,
I always
been pretty
imagined
crazy.
I always imagined ZeniMax Online as it popped out as 100 people. Never actually considered that it was such a small team at the beginning. Yeah, I was like, yep, ZeniMax Online, poof, this big studio.
I mean, we used to be able to all go out to lunch together, like the whole studio. Just, let's walk over here and go to lunch. And now it's like, well, maybe part of this team can go to lunch for a little bit. Like, it's pretty big now. There's a lot of people. It takes a lot of people to run massive game like this.
Yeah, definitely.
And like you mentioned, going to the going to Bethesda directly with the resume and everything. If I lived anywhere near one of the Bethesda or ZeniMax Online headquarters, you would only be able to push me away till it's not your private property anymore. Like, just to the edge. Just where your security team's clearance ends. That's where I am. And not even with a resume. I would just be staring inside like, what are they doing? Are they having fun?
So,
what is going on there?
Oh my God, it's funny you say that. So when back before we even announced that ESO was something that was being created, which worst kept secret ever, right? It was either Elder Scrolls or it was Fallout. But at that time, so we're on the second floor of the building, but in the back of it, because of I guess how the slope is, it was level with the ground, and it faced woods. But occasionally we would see people walking back there, and it's like, what are they doing? Like, there's no path back there. Like, there's no reason to be back there. And I think it was people like spying to see what we were doing. And then we had to literally like put tint on all the windows, like a window tint, so that way people couldn't see in, but we could still see out. And it became this whole thing of like, oh, you have to turn your monitors and you have to close the blinds. And it like became this super secret thing because people started knowing where we were and trying to get like little glimpses, and it got pretty crazy before we announced.
You've been contacted by the Thieves Guild.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it was pretty weird.
Definitely. I mean, the worst I've done is I just got curious as to what ZeniMax headquarters looked like, so I just I lived in Florida, so I Google Street Viewed it to where it said ZeniMax was, just to see, so that's what the office looks like.
So did you Google ZeniMax Online or just the regular ZeniMax?
I Googled ZeniMax Online.
Okay. Because I know some people will do... Yeah, somewhere in Maryland. Yeah, we're just north of Baltimore. So you can get into Baltimore City in like 15 minutes or so. But we're far enough on the outskirts where like, I don't know, a mile from the office, there's horses and stuff. So like it's, you feel like you're kind of in the middle of nowhere, but then like, take a drive right down the highway and you're in the middle of the city. So
I remember telling my partner, we were talking about possibly moving out of state, and I was like, well, if we went to Maryland, I'm in tech, maybe I can just beg these guys for a job. And he was like, look how cute this little shopping center is. So I was taking him around the area. And he's like, I don't know if you're going to be able to sell me on Maryland. We've lived in Florida almost all of our lives. It's warm here.
Yeah. It's finally getting warm here. It rained all day today. It was probably in the 50s, but like, I don't know. I like Maryland because of all the seasons. So, like, right as you start kind of getting sick of one season, the next one starts coming. So, like, I was kind of over winter, and I'm like, I kind of want it to start getting warmer. And sure enough, like, it starts getting a little bit warmer.
See, you say 50s is warm, but it was 92 here today, so...
Oh, my lord.
What? If it's already 92, like, what happens in July?
We die. That's what happens.
You just don't go outside.
Collectively melt. Yeah.
Okay,
that's why everybody has pools, right?
I had to
you have pools in
convert
Florida.
it to Celsius, but if it's 92 now, I would never live in Florida.
Yes.
I can't stand the heat. So, let alone 92. Hold on, let me do another conversion so I can. Okay, about 75 to 80 is my limit in terms of how hot I can handle and not start hating my entire life and the existence itself.
That's my dog. Yeah,
And
That was like
my dog doesn't want to
January.
walk if it's like more than 75. He just protests and sits down. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we're done.
Like,
I don't
during
go
summer,
outside
it
very
goes
much
up to
during the
100.
summer.
Oof.
Yeah,
And-
triple
Yeah.
digits is not good.
Yeah. I just
No, thanks.
I don't enjoy life during summer. My
Yeah.
air conditioner is running 24/7, and if I have to go out, it's just I would rather be in Deathlands of Dagon.
If it drops below 60, I start to freeze to death. I just shiver
I
and
mean-
shiver.
Giant blanket right here. So
I call myself the Chihuahua at work because everybody likes it significantly colder than I do, and so I just shake all day, and I'm also
Yeah.
the smallest one in the office.
Yeah.
So they say the resemblance is uncanny whenever I get cold.
well, it's
Yep.
the worst. Like when your hands start getting cold, and then it's hard to type, and like I need to be warm.
I brought a space heater that I put under my desk that then
Nice.
blows on me, and I just leave it. It can be in the middle of June, and because they keep it so cold in the office, I just have my space heater going.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but thing
Yeah,
is,
same.
see, you can protect. See, that's at least my logic. You can protect against cold by adding extra layers, wearing thermal clothing, and things like that. But you can't do much about the heat. Like,
You haven't been to Florida, have you?
no, but what are you gonna do? You can, I mean,
Yeah, you can only take off so many clothes before
yeah,
it becomes
before you get arrested.
inappropriate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've literally seen signs in some restaurants that say no shirt, no shoes, no problem. So it's just kind of,
Hey.
you see some things here.
Yeah, but even then, it's not. It's still hot. It's not like you're suddenly cooling off. It's still.
I just
Yeah,
stay in the
that's
AC,
fair.
and that's my fix for it. AC
Oh, yeah.
and pools.
See, I
In
don't
the
like
summer,
swimming.
we have so many fans running in the bedroom. So we have our ceiling fan, and then we have another fan that's on my dresser, and then we have a floor fan, and then we have a portable AC thing just to make sure the room stays cool. Because yeah, there's nothing worse when you're trying to sleep and you're hot and you're getting all sweaty and you don't like you want the covers on you, but you got to get them off. Like
Yeah.
no,
Yes, that's
pain.
I have to have covers on me regardless of how hot I am.
Yeah,
so it's
same.
like at that point it's like, okay, fine, just have a fan blow on me or something like that. to
Oh, and there's
balance it
nothing worse. Like, at least when it's cold, like, you can put a bunch of blankets on you and kind of snuggle up, whatever. But, like, yeah, when it's hot, like, I can't sleep if I'm hot like that. Can't do it.
The
Totally
best
get it.
invention of this century will be when the pillow's current side stays cold at all times. So you
They
never
make
have to
pillows
look-
like
out.
that.
In them.
They
Really?
make the cool pillow, yeah.
Yep.
I've seen
And
'em.
someone did it before me again.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know if it works, but that's what it says on the packaging, at least.
I was gonna be rich.
You still can.
Yeah. Just make a better one.
They actually
brand it
make,
louder.
yeah, right. Colder pillow. 5 degrees cooler. I've seen they make this fan that you put like underneath your sheets of the bed, and it's supposed to keep the whole bed cool that way, and it's safe, so like it won't catch on fire or anything. I saw it on TV, I think. I think it was on Shark Tank. I love that
If
show.
it catches on fire, that defeats the purpose of the fan keeping things cool, because then it's kind of hot.
I mean, among lots of other things.
Yeah.
Right. I actually have no idea where we are at the moment, so Lotus,
Okay,
you'll have
so
to...
yeah, that's fine. Let's see, where do we leave off? Okay, so next question would be, the ESO team really feels connected to its players more than other games. I mean, kind of just from a personal perspective. For example, you joining us here tonight for the show. Would you agree that that's the case? And do you have any insights on that, or is that just kind of us looking into it? Because everybody on the team is surprisingly involved with all of us in the community, I feel. And I think most people do.
Yeah, I don't want to say oh, we're super passionate, because I think everybody in the industry is to some extent. For us, I think because a lot of us have been together for so long, it's not super common in this industry to have people that have been at the same place for over 10 years. And a lot of us have been. Rich and I have been working together for, almost 13 years now. And so I think a lot of that creates, a real kind of family atmosphere internally. And we're all, more than just coworkers. We're all friends. We consider ourselves family. We do a lot of traveling together. I consider Rich, Finn, Wheeler, they're all really good friends of mine. And I think that feeling of friendship and family kind of goes beyond just the office. It kind of extends directly and indirectly to the community a little bit. And I think that's when you guys kind of start to notice we're all friendly together and we can all talk, and we kind of just envelop everybody into into our group here. And we are super passionate about the game, and we do care a lot about it. And I think that level of care kind of goes beyond just office hours. So, it's not just, me on this podcast right now. A lot of people watch streams outside of the office because they're just interested in it. We all play the game. We all like the game, and we want to see not just what's best for it, but it's just things that we're naturally interested in. So we do want to talk to people about the game, and it's not just gathering feedback. It's because we're into it. So, we're in a lot of Discords. There's a lot of engaging on Twitter. We go to a lot of these shows, so we get to talk to people in person about the game, face to face. And it doesn't feel like work at that point. It just feels like we're gamers going to a gaming show talking about the game that we enjoy. So,
which is very much how the events feel, because those to any
good.
I've been with are incredibly fun. So
we kind of tend to lose sight of it a little bit sometimes too, because we're kind of so ingrained into this game all the time. Kind of start to forget what it means to other people too until we go to these shows and we talk to people in person. I don't want to say we don't realize the impact we're making, but it makes it a lot more real. I think when we're talking to people face to face and they start telling us stories about they met their significant other through the game, or the game helped them get through really difficult times. We hear a lot of those stories when we go to these things. So it's we're very privileged to be able to provide this type of game to people that kind of gives them an escape and also gives them, their own little families here.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
Honestly,
it's
I
kind of
can
sappy,
say,
but
well, to go a step even sappier, I feel like the kind of family-oriented kind of office culture you guys have, like you said, it enveloped the community, and then the community saw that, and that set a really great example, and the ESO community as a whole, player to player, has just been incredible. There's so many just amazing people that I've personally met through the game that I've become really great friends with, and so that example control from the top down just made for an incredible community experience that I've enjoyed over the last 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And that's like, I'm still very early in my career as a game developer at the moment, but this feeling, like the feeling Elder Scrolls Online with its community that it captured is why I decided, like, okay, you know what, I want to be part of this. And not just as from the gaming side, but from the developer side. Like, I want to be one of the people that create this feeling for the community, for the gamers out there. Now, I've decided this long before Elder Scrolls Online, basically, but Elder Scrolls Online is a really, really great example of that feeling, like being proud of it, being happy about it, being passionate about it, feeling sappy about it. I mean, that's a great feeling, being able to sappy about something you helped create. That is just making me sappy as well.
Do we need a group hug right now? I feel like we need to do like a virtual group hug. Oh, it's hug time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, now I lost my place. Oh,
great.
Here we go. Do you, well, actually, you kind of covered a decent amount of this, so I guess kind of, if you would like to elaborate on more or less what we talked about, is there anything specific story-wise that you felt might be interesting to share? I mean, we were just kind of discussing the event things, because, surprise, we rambled on about Vegas for like 2.5 hours straight when Pixie and I got back from the event, so...
Oh my god,
anything else?
I feel so bad that, we were so busy during Vegas that I feel like we didn't even get a second to actually talk with you guys. I saw you guys and it was just a blur because we were just all running around. So it was very fun though, and it's kind of the first time we did something like that where we have this major announcement and F it, let's just invite everybody. If they want to come and watch it, cool. And I think it worked out pretty well. So
I know I had a blast.
Yeah, let's do that again, right?
Yes,
right?
Please.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Let's do it in Orlando next time.
We never get to go to Florida, so I would be down for that for sure.
Then we can all go to Disney afterwards. It'll be great.
Yes.
So
I remember it wasn't a launch party. It was kind of the first time we had ESO playable at a convention. So it was PAX East 2011, 12, somewhere around there. We had this big party in... it was kind of like a castle. I don't want to say a castle in Boston because that doesn't make sense, but it was kind of castle-esque. And we had so many people show up, and it was just this banging party. And I remember they ran out of beer, which if you've been to these game parties, you don't run out of booze. That's rule number 1. So we had so many people there that it was well, what do we do? We're still hours away from actually closing. And somebody literally ran out and bought buckets of beer for everybody. And it was it just turned into it felt like a frat party almost. Everyone's just handing out cans of beer at this point. And I don't know, it was just, I don't know. It was super fun. I remember that was the one where we gave out the little tiny Ouroboros coins that sometimes you'll see floating around on eBay. I actually found a bag of them at my desk recently, which I don't even know where they came from.
I wasn't at that because that was kind of before I had been able to get super involved with the community. I did get one of those off eBay, so they totally are there.
Oh.
But so just because a bunch of my friends, because I actually got to see you and chat with you again at PAX East because I'm actually from Boston.
Oh,
so we do have a castle. It actually was in a castle.
it?
Yeah, you weren't imagining that. We have beer summits there.
Oh, fun!
Yeah, so it's like a legitimate. It's pretty much a legit castle. So yeah, you're not
Nice.
crazy. We have a castle.
I remember it was very castle-y, but
Yes.
it felt weird to say there was a castle in the middle of Boston, but I guess that's
totally
what it
there
was.
is.
Back in doing my math, I guess 2016. That's when I was pregnant, and I remember we had, once again, PAX East in Boston. I think I was like 4 weeks away from giving birth, and my doctor cleared me. He's like, "You're fine. You can go if you want to." And it's a short 90-minute flight, and the hotel we stayed at was actually right next to a hospital. So I was like, "Well, if something happens, there's a hospital nearby." And everyone thought I was just absolutely out of my mind traveling when I'm literally like a few weeks away from my due date. But my husband at that time was going to New York for something. So I was like, well, again, if something were to happen, you'll actually be closer being in New York than if you were down in Baltimore. So it's like, let's just try it, like, see what happens. And yeah, everyone I remember was super nice. Like, oh, do you need to sit down? Do you need some water? Blah, blah, blah. Like, everyone's usually very nice. But this was like another level of like, I almost felt like I could take care of myself. Like, I'm fine here. But yeah, I was just waddling around the convention and it was fine. It ended up being fine. I actually went into labor like a couple hours after the ESO live.
Oh my
That,
god.
it was like 2 weeks after or something. And everyone was kind
Wow.
of doing an over-under of like, is your water going to break on the stream? And I'm like, well, if it does, like, that'll get us some really good numbers. So,
Yeah.
like, let's just go with it. Like, imagine that fun, right? Yeah, it ended up being like, we ended at 7 or 8, whatever time it was, and my water broke at 10 o'clock. So
Incredible.
it was really close. It was really close.
So photo
And,
finish.
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, right. I went back and watched the VOD, and I'm like, man, little did I know that was about to happen.
Your little one was super cooperative.
Oh God, I remember like every morning we always have like morning sync meetings with a bunch of teams. We call them scrums. And every morning during a specific one, she would just start kicking and kicking and kicking, and it was like, I don't know what it is about this particular meeting. That's like when she woke up, but yeah, I don't know. I used to like just use my belly as a shelf. So like I would put my phone on top and just kind of like set all sorts of things on there. And I don't know if you did the same thing, Pixie, but it was
I
just
did.
like this little, I think everybody kind of does it. Like, I don't know. That's where you keep your snacks and everything.
Well, I have a picture of myself. I got huge because I had a very large baby and I'm a very small
Yeah.
person. I have a picture of myself. I was using it as a table for an orange juice that I was
Yes,
drinking.
yes, that's what everybody does.
So because I have short legs and I've driven a manual for years and years, I have to be very close to my steering wheel in order to reach my clutch and push it all the way in. And I have pictures of the steering wheel literally touching my belly.
Oh my
I couldn't
God.
drive my car anymore. And I had to borrow my partner's automatic so I could sit back a little bit farther. It was a mess. So I totally understand that.
Man, stick shift sister. I don't meet a whole lot of people that still drive manuals, but I do.
I know. I've seen your
It's hard.
WRX, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty jealous. I drive a 6-speed Focus ST now. And
Oh, fun.
I saw your WRX. I was like, oh my god, she's awesome.
Ah, yes.
And I think that's the only thing I managed to say to you, because you were so busy at Vegas, was, oh my god, I love your car. Just what came out of my mouth. So,
I had a Mazda Speed before that one.
oh my god.
And before that was a VW, and before that was an Eclipse. And they've all been manuals, and I just can't go to automatic. Although when so I broke my hand
Oh no.
years ago, just shattered my fingers. Long story. It was because of the dog, but it was my fault anyway.
Oh no.
And I couldn't drive. Like, I literally couldn't. Like, how am I supposed to shift? Like, reach over? Like, you can't do it. And so I was stuck driving my husband's SUV for a while, and I just hated it. I'm sorry, automatic drivers, like, nothing personal. It's just so much more fun. So,
Agree.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been driving manuals for a really long time now, so I am right there with you. I don't want to drive an automatic anymore.
My dad taught me to drive on a manual, and he was like, "You'll thank me for this one day." And I remember just being in tears, and I'm like, "I can't do all of this. It's hard." And like, now I love it. But
I was about to graduate high school, and I only knew how to drive an automatic, but then something happened to my car, and my partner is still with me. He's stuck with me for a bit now. He had 2 Eclipse. He had a GST, and then he had a 3rd gen, and he was, you can have my 3rd gen because you need to make it to school and to work, and you just need to learn how to drive a manual. And I was paranoid of stalling the thing, so I just burned out everywhere I went through an entire set of tires before I figured out how to drive the thing.
My Eclipse, it was a 1st gen, the one with the little pop-up headlights. It was like redundant headlights because it had the headlight strip, but then it had the pop-ups, so I don't know why. And it had like the little hood scoop thing because that engine was so powerful that they just couldn't fit it all in there. I don't know what it was, but I remember the first time I actually drove it. We lost Arkhaniir. He's like, driving. But
I think his cats are causing issues.
I was going to say, I think he's being assaulted by Khajiit in the background.
I just saw a cat run by, and then he's gone. We're going to see the cat jump in the chair any second now.
Yep. It's a little Dark Brotherhood hood.
But yeah, I remember the first time I drove that car, I was like, it's a little bumpy, but I guess, I'm just kind of learning to drive it, whatever. Like, it was my first car. And my dad drove after me, like, all the way to wherever our destination was. And he gets out and he's like, you're driving on a flat, right? And I'm like, I thought that's just how the car drove. Like, I'm so stupid.
Well, my boyfriend laughed at me because I was okay. Like I said, I would peel out everywhere, but I could get going. But whenever I would go into reverse, apparently just my knowledge of driving would just go out the window, and I would just kind of like be on the verge of stalling the entire time and just hop backwards. So anytime I had to back out of a parking spot, it was just terrifying.
Well, and especially a lot of the older cars, like nowadays you have like, a lot of the assist stuff, so like you don't actually roll backwards, but man, some of those older cars were really hard to drive. Like, you had to hit spot on when you were kind of going from, stopped to actually moving.
His GST had a stage 4 racing clutch, and my car had a brake issue after a little while, so I had to drive his to work. And he's like, okay, it's either going to be completely stopped or going. There's no in between with this. Good luck not stalling. And so again, I just peeled out everywhere I went, and it just kind of worked out for me.
I remember in my VW, we're just going to keep talking about this until you tell us to stop, Lotus.
No, I'm letting this play out. I am a terrible stick shift driver, so like I'm just listening to you guys be excited about the things that I'm like, man, yeah, I do a terrible job with that. That's not great. Yep, it's like, oh man, it's like I'll miss a shift and flip, and you'll just hear the clutch grind. I'm like, oh, that's not good. It's like,
no.
I'm very bad at all of that.
So if we're ever going to race anyone, we race Lotus and then we make money and then we're good.
Yeah, I'll stall out, roll backwards, and end up in a ditch. It's fine.
We'll find you eventually. Are you okay? We saw you running around chasing your cats.
I was going to say, you were clearly being assassinated in the background, or attempts were being made.
No, it was fine. Sometimes
it's okay, we covered for you.
Yeah.
One of them really loves jumping on to the desk where all the cables are. So
naturally.
Yeah.
Of course. It's the most comfortable place to lay. So I guess we only have one other very important question for job-related parts of, has Finn actually brought his kazoo from the event to work?
Yes. Yes.
I'm actually not surprised by that response.
Which I don't know why any of us are surprised by this, but yeah, so he brought it, actually to the last stream we did, he started playing kazoo in the middle of our dungeon run. Thank you very much. And then he ended up leaving it in the room by accident, so I stayed after to kind of clean some stuff up, and I'm like, oh, I found this kazoo. I'm like, should I return this? Should I not? I gave it back to him. But now he can bother other people with it. He got very good at playing kazoo pretty quickly. It went from like, I don't know how to use this, to I'm now playing the test theme song with... So, actually, were you there? Did you see the guy who showed up with his like professional kazoo?
Oh my god, yes! He showed up with the professional kazoo off to the side, like as we were closing for the night, and I'm
this
like,
dude like pulls something out of his pocket.
Handy?
Yeah, he has like a kazoo. It was a metal kazoo in like this crazy case that he pulls out, and he's like, "Oh, my people!" And then it's like this little kazoo party that started.
Yeah.
This is in Boston.
Just kept using it all event.
Right? Yeah. I remember I was in the bathroom, like one of the far bathrooms, and I heard him playing the kazoo from all the way back there. And I'm like, oh my god, what did we do?
I mean, it is good to see that the in-game spontaneous random town party spirit to carry over to real life during the events. Like someone just starts playing something and suddenly there's 30 people.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
It was a thing. Yeah, so people in chat were like, a professional kazoo? No, this was like made of metal and steel, and it had its own like custom carrying case. Like, I didn't know this. I didn't know this existed either.
And I'm like, oh my lord.
This was like
did he
intense.
Have advanced knowledge of the kazoo thing, or did this just happen?
No idea.
It just happened.
Yep.
That's amazing.
He just was kind of there.
Only Finn, this would happen to.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was him, Finn, and then I think it was Camelworks. It was the three of them playing their kazoos.
Yep.
And it just evolved into a very impressive rendition of the Undaunted theme.
It was a nice little trio.
Yeah.
I remember you holding a kazoo in your hand, and like Rich and Lotus just looks at each other. What are we? How are we?
I thought it was broken because I learned that show that I did not know how to play kazoo. I thought you just blew in it like with just straight air, and it was like, no, you need to like hum and do it. I'm like, wow, I wish I had known that when I was on the stage.
Such a kazoo noob.
Yeah, but there was no defeating Finn in that kazoo off anyways, so it's fine. I accept that.
The challenge was designed for him, let's be honest.
So I guess our last couple of questions are just a little more general, a little more game related, nothing too in depth. Do you have a favorite race in game?
Favorite race?
Some don't.
You know what? I always kind of want to play a Khajiit, but then I don't. And I don't know why. Like, literally every test game, it's like, that's appealing, but I'm not going to do it. And then I always stick with, like, a Bosmer or something, so... Although, no,
feel like
I'm doing Red Guard
being
right now.
Attacked by Khajiits really leans into that answer. Do you have a favorite dungeon or trial?
I really like Sunspire. I actually just did Vet Sunspire a couple weeks ago for the first time.
That fire boss is no joke.
It was really hard, and I kept telling them, I'm like, you guys are just going to have to carry me, because, like, I play pretty casually. I play for fun, and, yeah, we did it. Got my skin and everything. But
nice.
That's pretty impressive.
I love the boss fights and everything. It's just fun, and I like... Which one? This is my problem. When I start doing the patch notes, it's like, because we've done so many dungeons that it's like, I forget the names of, like, which DLC everything was in. The most recent one with the grappling hook.
Unhallowed Grave.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yep.
That one, I think, quickly became one of my favorites because it has all those different mechanics that it feels like chaos while you're doing it, but it's like fun chaos. It just, I don't know.
I feel like that's the internet's favorite dungeon as well.
Right? Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Everyone loves that one.
I've done it a couple times, and it just, I don't know. It it's really fun being able to like, especially the one boss where like you have to kind of grapple back and forth depending on what they're
I was
I
gonna
don't know.
say.
It was
Yo,
pretty cool.
That is amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. And especially if you don't give people a good heads up and they try to do it on the fly and plunge to their death. That's so fun. I'm a bad dungeon lead. Never have me run a dungeon group.
So the first time we actually showed off ESO to the public, we did Fungal Grotto years ago. That was during QuakeCon, one of the QuakeCons, 2011 maybe. And that was kind of our first like showing ESO to the world and how like you can play Elder Scrolls with friends or whatever, and we did Fungal. And we practiced so many times, I remember. It was... Who was in the group? It was me, Rich, I think Nick Conkle at the time, and somebody else. I forget who the fourth player was. And Paul was presenting, who was with us at the time. And we went through this dungeon so many times to make sure that we made it look really good. And then, of course, we did it so much that it became easy. And we were just face rolling everything. And everyone's like, yeah, this looks cool, but it looks kind of easy. And it's because we practiced like 80 times just to make sure like we weren't going to die or anything. And so I remember we got to the last boss, and it was like right before it was like they crashed through the wall. It does that thing. And I remember like I'm watching my screen and like I'm waiting for the boss to crash through, and I'm like, it's not doing it. I remember I glance over at Rich's screen and I see he's frozen too, and I'm like,
Oh no!
like what do we do? And then my game just crashes and I'm at login and I'm like, look normal, like just pretend like everything's fine. And I think Paul kind of got wind of what was happening and he chalked it up to like, oh, we don't want to spoil the end for anybody, so we're gonna stop here. And we're all just kind of sitting there like, yeah, don't look at our crash screens right now.
That's a
Yay, we
solid
beat it,
recovery,
guys.
though.
Yeah, we beat it. Yeah, good recover. But it literally never happened while we were practicing. And then, of course, when we're live to however many people, it's like, great, that would happen. So, yeah, good times.
How it works.
Thanks, Fungal Grotto.
Yep. And then I guess you can kind of almost combine the next two. So with Greymoor coming up on the horizon, obviously you don't have details or anything like that, but is there anything ambiguous enough that you're looking forward to with either Greymoor, like, because there's, you know, obviously zone and story, there's the vampire changes, antiquities, which we're still, you know, waiting to hear more on, so can't exactly be super in depth. But with Greymoor and going forward with ESO, is there anything that you can talk about that you're hoping might one day reach things? Because I know you guys kind of all probably have your own directions that you'd like things to take, but there's a lot of you on the team. But at the same time, you probably have enough inside knowledge that you can't talk about some other things, even if they are something you want.
Yeah, we have, Rich has this whole, like, spreadsheet of stuff, of planning out, like, for the rest of this year into next year and all the features that are being put in. So obviously I can't talk about that spreadsheet. But it's funny you mention how we can't talk about Greymoor stuff, because I don't know if you saw the tweet, but on Monday morning, we actually have a bunch of Greymoor previews coming out from different sites that have been able to get on and kind of do an early preview of it. So starting Monday, you're going to start seeing a whole lot of footage coming out about the zone, about antiquities, about the vampire, just kind of all the stuff. So it's pretty exciting.
Just
for me
knowing that,
personally.
like,
Really looking forward to it.
making
yeah.
like,
It's going to be
butterflies
great.
in my stomach now.
Right? Antiquities, that whole system, I'm really excited about, because I remember, like, we talked about it in Vegas. We didn't really show what it looked like, so trying to explain this whole system, it's a little bit hard to understand without seeing it. But once you start seeing the UI, it starts to make a little bit more sense, and it kind of turns into like a game within a game, the way it's built out. So it adds a lot to the game for like something. I see Brax Wolf in chat like, hint, hint, keep your eyes on your favorite site. Oh, you.
That's some smooth marketing.
Yeah, real good. It really gives you something to do across the entire game. It takes you to all different zones, and there's so many different little rewards that you can get from it. So, like, whether you're into housing or, you know, that awesome looking mount that we showed off, like, there's so many little cool things that you can get from this, and it's such a fun system to play around with. I'm excited to play it for myself, and I'm really excited to see people really get into it and understand what this is. Because again, like we were kind of restricted on what we could show in Vegas because it just kind of wasn't done yet, you know, like we were still building it out.
Sure.
So yeah, come Monday, I think the excitement will grow for sure when everybody can kind of see what this system is.
I mean, whenever I saw that wolf mount in Vegas, I was completely sold on it.
It's so
I didn't
cool,
care
right?
what the minigame was. I was like, I'm going to get good enough to get that thing because
It's
I
so
need
cool.
it.
Yeah.
I just hope I don't get lost in antiquities and actually forget to do the story of Greymoor. And
You will.
Yeah, I feel like
You will.
that's going to distract me a lot.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that would be our interview questions. So we should kind of decide how we'd like to progress going forward, because holy crap, we are over 2 hours already, just an FYI.
I told you I talk a lot.
No, that's totally good, but we
Fine.
just don't want to keep you here until you are
Like, if you're okay with
desperate
it,
to
we
go
can
to sleep.
go 4 hours.
Yeah, so it's like we don't want to drain you of like all your desire to ever do something like this again. By being like,
I'll log
we're on
off and be
Tales.
like,
And- yeah, and you know, Monday morning came and they still hadn't stopped recording, and it was awful.
I'm still here.
Now we can talk about
SOS.
Greymoor.
They won't stop talking about Greymoor.
But yeah, if you're okay with it, we are used to this sleep deprivation every week, so we can continue.
I'll stick around for a little bit.
All right.
Perfect. Should we maybe do the community email thing, since it seems like a good idea just with, you know, community manager being here? We can always delay
Right.
Tales if need be
Yes.
till the following week.
Yeah, sounds good. So to quickly recap, what we did was, for this episode, since Gina was going to be here, we decided to give away one of those amazing Greymoor coins. And the condition was, to join the giveaway, you were supposed to send us an email with your favorite or one of your favorite Elder Scrolls Online memories. And we got a bunch and we got a winner. And we are gonna actually, we can't read all of them at the moment. We are gonna spread it out across the episodes, but there are some that I'd like to read this episode. I'm gonna start with the winner, actually. So he's in chat as well at the moment. I don't know why he's awake at this hour, but
Is it
Ugo-
Lotus?
The same thing.
No.
Yeah, I have a notorious thing of winning these things, but I can't win this. So.
So it is Ugo who won the giveaway, and his actual favorite memory is one of my favorite memories as well, because this was when we almost died laughing. So it said, "Hello, in 5 years of playing, I've stacked up quite a lot of amazing memories. Training and finally completing Veteran, Maw of Lorcage, which I've never been able to do. Guild PvP sessions, random fun role-playing, messing around in houses, and hours of fishing with friends, but one more memory tops it all. Veteran Scale Color Peak achievement hunting. Oh boy, we got done with all the achievements except one, the hard mode. Our group spent hours in the dungeon until we managed to break and bug the dungeon to the point where nothing made sense, and we were all just crying or laughing because of the hilarious bugs, tiredness, and frustration. We could not tell the difference ourselves anymore. My stomach hurt from laughing, and we made no sense anymore under all the laughing. I've never in my life had that much fun playing a game. I'm always grateful of the great friends I've made in this game, and all the fun we've had. My 5-year ESO-versary is nearly next month, so this little trip up to memory lane was a lot of fun. Signed, Ugo.
Aww. That was awesome.
I remember, so this happened like I think twice. Ugo is also part of Ophelia Noir's Drunkenborn's Guild in PC European Mega Server Guild. And we were throwing ourselves repeatedly at the hard mode of Scale Color Peak. And after how many hours I do not know, things started to break. I don't know why actually. Like it never happened again. We could never reproduce them again. But that specific run, boss's fire was going the wrong way, like opposite direction. AoEs were happening at the wrong places, and it wasn't game breaking, but it started becoming so hilarious because we were at it for like 7 hours, I guess, at that point. And it was just, oh my. It actually, I mean, at some point we were unable to play because of how much we were laughing. But eventually we cleared it. I don't know if it was that run, but we cleared it. But as Hugo said, it was one of the most fun I had in any dungeon. That Scale Color Peak hard mode is Mike Finnegan's...
Scale Color Peak, breaks my brain trying to explain that to people, because there's so many mechanics.
It's a really hard one.
Yeah, there's so many things going on at the same time.
Yep.
And you only get one shot with so many of the, to avoid the poison blast that covers the whole field.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, if one person's like, okay, I'm gonna be on being stoned. I'm gonna be stoned this one when it turns you into the gargoyle or whatever, or you go into the ice field. And if one person screws it up and it's not theirs, and everybody just is panic mode at that point, because it's like, oh god, if we don't get this right, we're all gonna wipe and we're all gonna die. So yeah, that I feel is one of Finnegan's most diabolical.
Yeah. It doesn't help that we are generally a goofy group. So, I mean, we do our best to stay serious, but often I fall off the edge. Often I pull the boss towards one of our DPS.
You're that guy.
They put up with my tanking a lot. I'm definitely not the most serious tank, even during the most serious tanks, but runs. But it was definitely amazing fun, and we were crying at that point. So in addition to that, so Ugo, congratulations, first of all. We are going to talk about how to get the coin to you across the continents. But we are going to do that probably tomorrow after we all sleep and wake back up.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. I've been figuring this out along the way. There's some creative workarounds I've found.
There's a couple more emails that I actually want to read. Because they are really nice, and I want to read them while Gina is here as well. Especially since we talked about sappiness. So this is from Jonathan. You are probably going to get 100 of sappy emails telling you how they love to play this game with their significant other and how in love they are, blah blah blah. Hopefully this sappy email is a little different. I started playing ESO when my long-distance partner and I started dating. We've been together for almost a year now, and ESO has been an excellent way to bridge that distance. Games like Animal Crossing, where you just hang out, are a great way to cope in a long-distance relationship, but ESO gives my partner and I the ability to actively work together towards achievements, quests, and the like. It truly feels like we are working together, despite her carrying the hell out of me. It makes us feel like we are together, and that distance is non-existent. We are constantly encouraging each other, and we've become better players because of it. I've fallen in love with her so much more by getting to bond with her in a way other couples don't truly appreciate. ESO is creating so many memories with my partner that I'll cherish forever. I hope you enjoyed my sap, Jonathan.
I enjoyed the sap.
I specifically picked this one as well because I thought, as I mentioned earlier, as someone who part of creating this, Like, this must be great to read about, you know? And this one is actually...
Not all forum horror.
Yeah. This one is actually one of my favorite moments from the game as well. And it is written very nicely. So this is from Trey. One of my best memories in ESO would have to be when you get to meet Sorasil at the end of the Clockwork City quest. Clockwork City surprised me in more than one way. I thought I wouldn't enjoy it, but I really did. Mostly because of the writing. By the time I finished it, I genuinely took my time to talk about Sorasil in his garden, feeling rather bittersweet about it all, like I was having a final talk with an old friend. I found the ineffability of Sorasil to be so compelling. I don't know how whether his... Wait, hold on. Oof. I don't know whether his writer had a great affinity for Sorasil or if they had become more proficient in writing altogether, but his omniscience? Not sure.
Omniscience.
Omniscience.
It's omniscience. It's super weird.
But his omniscience and foreboding last dialogue was my favorite depiction of any character in any Elder Scrolls game so far. The slight presence of melancholy which sufficed through his demeanor and his voice actor's cadence was just enough to humanize him at moments. I realized I should have let one of you read this, because when I was reading this on my mind it was fine, but then I realized I don't know how to pronounce most of these words.
English is an unpleasant language to try to deal with.
Yes, it is.
The DLC as a whole was honestly one of the stronger deliveries of ZeniMax Online. His explanation of how you, the player, are beyond his abilities, the prisoner who sees the door to his prison while he can only see the prison's walls, genuinely changed the way I see every Elder Scrolls game. Same with his line about Almalexia, it will not end well, no indeed it won't. I would love to gain more philosophical conversations with Sorasil. He has become my favorite character after that questline. Thank you for the going away, I look forward to the next episode. Sincerely, Trey. It's that garden scene in Clockwork City was amazing. Like it really had that like bittersweet, melancholic feel to it. And I played Morrowind, Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind for like 50 hours. I never got to meet Sorasil in that game, so I can only imagine how amazing the Clockwork City DLC was for people who actually have played, Morrowind and went through all that nostalgia along with that scene. But even for someone who hasn't talked to Sorasil before, it was just a great scene. It's definitely one of my favorite story moments in Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, it was sad to say the least, as Morrowind is my favorite game, and it's like, just thinking like where that goes, it's like, oof, that's dark.
Oh no.
Yeah, dark, but very, very. I agree with that. That it's incredibly well written the way that was done, and it's like, as much as everything is like under his control of having all the contraptions and everything like that, just knowing how the story kind of, I guess you'd call it, devolves over the series of the games with Sorasil is like, ooh, there is no happy ending there.
I one day should really finish Morrowind, but yeah, I was going to, but then I ended up being underleveled, I guess, and started getting wrecked left and right wherever I go. So I just switched back.
Is this the original? The original Morrowind, or the one?
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. OG. Yep.
Yeah.
So
that was actually the first time I had ever touched an Elder Scrolls game was Morrowind, and a friend was over and had it, and I just remember I was really young, and I just roamed around and saw mushroom cities, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever, and then I was fascinated by Elder Scrolls ever since.
My first Elder Scrolls game was Oblivion. So, like, the moment I fell in love with Elder Scrolls is, so back then, we only had one computer in the house, so when my older brother was playing, I was sitting next to him like, just watching what he's doing. And one day I was watching him and he was just at the end of that sewer exit. And
Oh yeah.
up until that time, I only played like Call of Duty, I wasn't into RPGs. And he went out of the sewers, and you are greeted with that scenery with the mountains in the back, the island in the middle with the Aelade ruins and the river. And for 2006, that scene was like, wow. That is the moment I fell in love with Elder Scrolls and started playing RPGs from then on. It was Oblivion. And I feel like whoever's first Elder Scrolls game, like, okay, sentences are becoming difficult. 7:30 a.m.
Brain powering down.
Yeah, I'm just gonna skip forming this sentence because it's gonna be. I realize I won't be able to.
My guess would be, just because I think we've hung out enough at this point, most people, their first Elder Scrolls experience tends to be their favorite one.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting good at this. I can
Sharing
read
a brain
Arc
now.
powering down mode.
Yeah, just acting as a sleepy Arc translator. What about you, Lotus Pixie? I mean, we got all these emails, but
we do, and we should spread them out so that we can cover a decent amount of people.
I was
weeks,
trying to say, like, you have. Do you have?
So, I want to say mine because it actually sort of relates to you, Gina. Mine's sort of sappy, sort of. It had a sad result in the end, but it was great and provided her a lot of help at the time. This was actually before I was on the show itself. It was right before I joined Tales as a host. But a couple years ago, actually almost more than a couple years ago, it's actually, it's a decent bit back. Me and a few of my friends grouped up to do the Level Up for Lungs event for our friend Amy, who had cystic fibrosis. So she needed a double lung transplant. And it's very, very expensive, obviously. So we were doing all sorts of different things to raise funds for her to help with medication and everything like that. And I had started to become pretty involved with people in the community, and I decided to do a 24-hour marathon of ESO in which we could try to get any funds raised for it. And this, like I said, was a while ago, and you go through hundreds of thousands of emails, obviously, as we learned. But I messaged you and asked if there was any way that you could provide something that I could kind of give away, even though I wasn't like a stream team member or anything like that, and we had not really talked too much at that point. And it was kind of strange because without much hesitation, when you responded to my email, you were like, yeah, absolutely. And you provided me, I believe it was 3 game codes, several versions of ESO Plus to raffle off, several crown packs to raffle off, and like some mounts. And you gave them to me and were like, yeah, just hopefully it helps and you can just kind of give them away during the stream. And I was like, wow, that was way more of a response than I was expecting. So
I'm so glad I helped.
Yeah, so am I, because people loved it.
Awesome.
So it went off incredibly well. I had talked to you guys at Dungeon Crawler Network and Tales, and you and Ag sent a bunch of support over, and you shouted me out on the podcast about the event before I was like part of the network at all myself. A lot of people in the community, like a lot of people showed up and donated an insane amount of money. We raised $3,000 for her in one day, which
awesome.
Is kind of bonkers, especially for somebody who doesn't have a stream schedule, is super inconsistent when I stream, and I totally just stream for like the fun of it. And these are all people that are kind of known throughout the community, but Orchide hung out with me for I think 23 of the hours. The Khajiit was, I believe, there for like 20 hours straight, took a break, ran her own stream so that she could raid us with more people, which was incredibly nice of her. Tea and Crumpet, who was in the chat earlier and pretty much everybody knows as like the most generous person in the ESO family. I don't remember how much money he donated, but he subbed bombed like over 100 people in chat at once, and it like broke my notifications because we were donating all of that. And Ninja614, who we also love, at 4 a.m. when I was like deliriously tired and like falling asleep on my keyboard, ended his stream, and I believe he raided my chat with like 700 or 800 people to like wake me back up.
Wow.
And it devolved into a bunch of people donating to the cause and everything like that. So that whole event and everything around it, other than I got to have fun and play a game that I liked for 24 hours, which is always good, everybody just supporting a cause like that, which meant so much to us, was pretty much incredible. And I can't imagine an event actually being able to top that, like in video game terms, because it was more than just the video game itself. It was just kind of inspired by the game that you guys made. So yeah, as for all of the team, I just wanted to say thanks for that, because that meant a lot to us. So
Aw, thanks.
ESO fam is like an invasion of a horde, but it's all good. It's
it's a very positive horde. Think of us as a smiling locust swarm. It's great.
So my favorite memory is a bit hard to pin down to one specific memory, but it also has to do with the ESO fam. So when I first started playing, I was actually on console. I played right at Xbox launch, and my son, gosh, I think he was somewhere between 9 and 11 months old, but it was before he turned 1.
No, little
and
baby.
I was dealing with some really intense postpartum depression that just lasted way too long for what I should have been dealing with. But I remember the first guild I got an invite to, the guy who ran it was actually an Army veteran who was dealing with PTSD. And I remember just staying up all night playing ESO, running dungeons with him, and just, like, I would have panic attacks a lot because of everything I was dealing with the postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. And having somebody there who just kind of, it was different what he was going through, definitely, but he also understood where I was coming from. And being able to link up with someone like that whenever I didn't really have anyone around me in my small town that I knew who was going through something like what I was going through. And just being able to find that support in a video game, of all things, was just incredible. And now some of my closest friends that I've ever had, I've met through the game, and the community is just so incredible. Everyone was so kind, and I mean, whenever your healer starts having a panic attack mid-dungeon, it gets a little interesting. So,
It turns into chaos.
Yeah, so it just, the amount of just love and support I got during that time really, because I was a stay-at-home mom and my partner worked 50, 60 hours a week, so I was just alone a lot. And Elder Scrolls Online made me not feel alone anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm just forever grateful to the game and the community for giving me that sense of community that I needed in the time I needed it most.
Postpartum depression's no joke. I went through it too. And like, I always thought it was something that you get like immediately after having a baby, but I didn't get mine until months and months afterwards. And they were saying like it can happen anytime within that first year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to like turn this into like, I don't know, some infomercial about postpartum, but yeah, it definitely hit me hard too. And I didn't even realize until like I started realizing kind of what was happening, and I'm like, oh my God, I think this is what the problem is. It's tough. And yeah, I definitely had to lean on a lot of people just at work internally, like for help. And you know, it kind of goes back to us being a family and that extending off into the community too. So
Yeah, it is really tough. And it's something that you don't really realize that it just kind of sneaks up on you. You don't realize it's happening until you're so deep and you're like, wow, I don't feel like myself anymore. And I don't think I really have for a really long time now. And I should probably do something about that. But then you get to the point where you just don't really know how. And that's where that sense of community, either from you with your coworkers or from me with people in ESO, they help pull you back and remind you who you are and help you get back to being yourself again.
Yeah. We, ever since we went remote, the whole studio went remote, we use Slack internally, and we set up a Slack channel just to talk about, like, working from home and whether it's tips or we just kind of want to chat with each other or whatever. And we were all talking the other day about, like, how it's not so much working at home that's difficult. Like, we're all getting our work done and that's fine. But just this whole, like, you know, everyone keeps calling it social isolation. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're talking to each other, kind of, you know, just typing to each other, but, you know, missing that face-to-face time that we always get. And, you know, everything's closed and we're just kind of holed up at our houses right now. And this channel is just a nice little resource for us to vent to each other about how everybody's feeling, and, like, what you're feeling is normal, and it's normal in a very abnormal time. And again, like, I don't want to keep harping on the same topic, but, like, just having, you know, that little internal community where we can all kind of just talk to each other and lean on each other, I think it just kind of strengthens us even more, and hopefully, I don't know, that comes out when we're kind of talking to the people who are enjoying the game too.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
And
late night thoughts.
About, like, talking about it again and again, Elder Scrolls Online, it changed so many lives. Like, looking back 6 years, if I had never started playing Elder Scrolls Online, I would be a completely different person. First of all, I would probably never be involved with all these different people from across the world that really, like, widened the way I see the world, instead of just getting stuck in my, like, own culture, whatever. I got to see, I made friends with these amazing selection of people from all across the world. And I really believe that changed me for the better. And I sometimes think, like, okay, what if I had never started Elder Scrolls Online, never gotten involved with the community, streams, doing Tales of Tamriel, from being listener to now, like, I run DCN, and it's a scary thought that I would not like where I would be if I had never gotten involved with ESO. I would just not be as, I don't know, it's too complex a thought to put into words as my current brain state, but I hope it's really, ESO is a life-changing community. Like, ESO community is a life-changing community. I mean, the game, yes, it is a very fantastic game that we all love, but the community and you guys, the developer team, it's just a whole different experience. It's not just gaming, it's not just being involved with a community, like watching streams, things like that. It's a whole different experience, and it's a really, really positive one. So yeah.
Preach.
I very, very much second that, because, again, I've had the pleasure of meeting all of you because of the game, and it's like, I do constantly joke that, you know, probably the internet's biggest mistake was giving me a microphone because I won't shut up. But on the flip side, I'm very pleased that I have a community where any of my, like, charity fundraising stuff and stuff like that I do kind of has a direction now, and a community that supports what I do. So it's like, that's very humbling that many people, like, stop and take a little bit of time to listen to you. And more so, it's just strange to kind of have any involvement with people on the other side of the screen of the game that I've played, because I've been in some less nice communities throughout my gaming career. So it's when we got to deal with what ESO has, it's kind of like a nice change, and I'm honestly not sure I could go back to some of the more competitive stuff I used to play when I was like in college or whatever. And now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, you just kind of be nice to each other. And I'm like thinking back, it's like, oh man, we weren't nice to each other. Everybody's awful in those games. So yeah.
Well, we are nearing 3 hours on the show, plus 1 a.m. for you guys and 8 a.m. for me.
Yeah.
I've sort of became unable to form sentences at this point. So it is our final thoughts and where people can find us section, basically. Lotus, why don't you start and sort of, because we forgot to talk about the pre-show, like what we say on the section.
It's totally fine. We'll cover extra stuff next week when it's less fancy show. But I am pretty much everywhere. Lotus of Doom, be it in game, on Twitch, on Discord, on Twitter. So yeah, if you ever want to hit me up, feel free. That's where you can find me.
So that's go ahead.
I was just gonna make your job easier so you could take a break and take a little nap over there. I'm HyperPixie Gaming on Twitch and HyperPixie Games on Twitter because character counts really don't like my name. You can find me there.
And Gina, I assume everybody already knows, but
I'm everywhere.
I'm everywhere. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Discord. I will say, if you're trying to get a hold of me, I think the worst way to do it is through Twitter DMs, because so many things go into like my other folder that I just don't see. Hit me up on Discord. DMs are open there. Again, I mentioned this earlier. If you send me a forum PM, I will read it because I get an email alert. I may not always respond, but I am reading them. So yeah, wherever you want to send, email, whatever, I'm there.
Well, good luck with future mass.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it.
I heard your inbox cry whenever you said that.
I was done at inbox is loading. It's that was it for me.
It's loading. Gotta turn it on.
But really, thank you so very much for joining us, Gina. This has been a blast. Like I gotta be honest, I was super excited and very nervous at the beginning, but once we started, this was just full on natural. At least it was a classic Tales. So you're a natural, I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm very glad you can derail with the best of us.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Hey, I asked before this started, like, do you have a time limit? Do you want me just to kind of talk or like whatever?
Nope.
And he was like, yeah, just go. It'll be fine. Okay.
Yep.
Really good at talking.
I saw people calling it Tires of Tamriel in chat earlier, so it was just fantastic.
That was so on point, like completely irrelevant to anything ESO.
I don't even remember how it got there.
Me either.
That's how we know that you're part of Tales.
Yeah.
Because we're like, how did we get to where we are currently?
Hey, it worked.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It did.
Nope. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me. This was fun.
It definitely was. And if you ever decide to have another sleep deprived 3 hours, completely random
Yes.
show,
The door's always open for you. So
You'll be sorry. Now every show's going to be like 4 hours long.
I'm okay with it.
Oh, God. Gina wants to be on again? Get her off. Get her off.
I just need to add a couple more cups of coffee to my nightly routine, and I'll be delirious, but I'll be okay. All right, so I just gotta go get through the outro properly, and then we'll wrap it up. Here we go. Brain, come on, you can do this.
You can do it. You can do it.
You can follow everything we do over at dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Be sure to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/dungeoncrawlernetwork if you want to help support the show. And consider leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes so people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words, and derail, and sometimes it matters. Thank you all so much for joining on this episode of Tales of Tamriel, and we will see you next time. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
When Akatosh slew Lorcan, he ripped his heart right out. He hurled it across Tamriel, and the heart was heard to shout, red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. The laughing heart sprayed blood afar, a gout on Seer it fell, and like a dart shot to its mark down in an alien well. Magicka fused the Lorcan blood to crystal red and strong. Then wild elves cut and polished it down to Chimel at a ball. Red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. When elves lost Nirn to men, Akatosh gave the stone to Saint Alesh in token of her right to sit the throne. Red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. Red diamond, protect us till the end.